Chapter 849. Dong Qin did not go out. Instead, she lay on her bed and glared at Emperor Yi and Yi Qinghan as if to say, "Do it in front of me if you dare." "I don't care." Emperor Yi smiled disdainfully. "Since I already want to do it, why should I be afraid of a little woman like you? Look if you want." "I don't care." Emperor Yi kicked the door shut and pounced on Yi Qinghan. He began to take off Yi Qinghan's clothes. Perhaps he was really stimulated by Long Zai and was thinking of ways to make Yi Qinghan excited. Yi Qinghan had never experienced such initiative from her before. He did not care whether Dong Qin looked or not and immediately gave the most intense response. Zixian and Long Zai looked up and saw the shadows moving around in Sky Room Number 1. Emperor Ye's moans were no longer restrained by his shyness. They could not help but blush. They had no idea how Dong Qin managed to resist staying in the room. That night, Yi Qinghan displayed his masculinity. With the help of God power, he no longer had to worry about *****. Long Zai and the other two were envious of him. Dong Qin wanted to cry but had no tears. She had thought that Emperor Yi would be embarrassed, but she did not expect them to really ignore her. She watched them play all kinds of tricks and did not know whether she should leave or not. In the end, she gritted her teeth and watched. She was addicted to it. If not for her last shred of dignity, she would have charged forward. The last day passed by surprisingly quickly. Powerhouses appeared in the county city one after another, and the weakest was a half-step lord. The villagers with slightly lower cultivation levels did not dare to enter the county city before spring. They could not afford to stay in the inn because Gui Feng would tear them apart. Yi Qinghan walked out of the room in satisfaction. Emperor Yi was in high spirits and looked even more charming. Only Dong Qin looked bitter and angry. That afternoon, lords began to appear. Long Zai released a faint aura to intimidate these powerhouses and tell them not to cause trouble in the inn. Long Zai was considered rather famous in the Dragonline realm. Ordinary lords would show him respect and not cause trouble in the inn. Half of the hundreds of rooms were taken away in no time. Lords had taken half of the rooms, which meant that there were at least 50 to 60 lords staying in the room. The remaining half-step lords were either wealthy or respectable. They represented the families and organizations behind them in the city. Even lords dared not offend them recklessly. On the last evening of spring, a group of people arrived. They were all dressed the same, except for the symbol on their left shoulders, which was slightly different. Yi Qinghan stood on the second floor and looked at the group of young people. He couldn't tell who they were. At that moment, Long Zai said telepathically, "They're from the Six Gods Dao sect. There are 12 of them, representing the 6 major inheritances. Each inheritance has 2 people. The one with the light on his left shoulder is the time inheritance. They've always been in awe of my grandfather, so they can't be considered enemies. However, it's hard to say about the other inheritances." Yi Qinghan followed Long Zai's instructions and looked at the 12 people. The 2 youngsters on the far left were a man and a woman. The man was handsome, while the woman was beautiful. They both had a light on their left shoulder that seemed to be able to reverse time. Their cultivation levels were unfathomable. Even though they were half-step lords, they were not people that lords like LV Junyi could kill. The 12 of them were arrogant and looked down on everyone else. They did not spare anyone else a glance. "Boss Long, where are the rooms we booked?" The young man in the lead had a galaxy vortex imprinted on his left shoulder. It was lifelike. If one stared at it closely, one could even see that the vortex was actually moving. It was unbelievable. Long Zai's fingertips moved slightly. He looked up and said, "It's on the 3rd floor. Room 301 to 301 are yours." He's Flowing Ghost Taoist's 3rd generation direct disciple. His name is Wuxian Lu. He's one of the strongest among the younger generation in the Dragonline realm. His cultivation level is on par with some of the weakest lords. Long Zai sent a telepathic message to Yi Qing Han again, reminding him who the enemies were. In the current era, direct disciples of lords with the Chaos God Lattice would definitely be on par with those with combat constitutions. At least, combat constitutions did not have much of an advantage before the chaotic universe reappeared. Yi Qing Han nodded slightly and scanned the crowd as if nothing had happened. A cold aura suddenly appeared in the originally quiet inn. It was none other than Zhuxian Lu. "Boss Long, what's the meaning of this? I booked 12 rooms back then. Why are there only 10 rooms so far in advance?" Zhuxian Lu asked with a frown. "Young Master Zhua, one of your rooms has been taken by Sword God Dugu. Since he asked, I wouldn't dare to refuse." Long Zai smiled faintly. If it were any other man, they wouldn't bicker with her. However, Zhuxian Lu couldn't help but smile evilly. He asked coldly, "There are so many empty rooms. Why did you choose to give my room to him? Even if he wants my room, it's only one. I'm naturally willing to give it up. But what about the other room? Are you bullying me because I'm a junior?" Everyone looked over from the corridor. Some people were unhappy that a man was making things difficult for a weak woman. However, most of them didn't dare to say anything. In the last room, Long Zai couldn't help but look at Yi Qing Han. That room had been taken by him. Although Long Zai's vision was blurry, Zhuxian Lu still noticed it. He couldn't help but look up to the second floor. Yi Qing Han was standing proudly at the door of the first room. His temperament was outstanding, but his cultivation level seemed to be a bit lacking. With his cultivation level, it was impossible for him to book a room in the Dragon Gate Inn. Humph. So it turns out that Boss Long likes this. If your body has any needs, just tell us. Why do you need this kind of trash? Is a high god considered a sacrifice? Zhuxian Lu snorted coldly and mocked in disdain. Ha ha ha, the people behind Zhuxian Lu laughed loudly. Although they wanted to take advantage of Long Zai, they were mostly mocking Yi Qing Han for being a reckless ant that dared to take their room. Long Zai's eyes turned cold, and a trace of killing intent appeared. It seemed that Ghost Daoist Flowing Void still didn't dare to tell these juniors that she was the granddaughter of Flowing Light Sovereign God. Otherwise, Zhuxian Lu and the others wouldn't humiliate her in public. Before Yi Qing Han could speak, Zhuxianliu's cold gaze directly rushed into Yi Qing Han's eyes. He coldly threatened, "Are you going to get out of the room yourself, or do you want me to send you out of the inn?" Yi Qing Han grinned. These 12 people were indeed very strong, but they weren't so strong that they didn't even have the thought to resist. At least in terms of individual strength, none of them were a match for Emperor Yi and Zixin. If it was a fight, the 4 of them might be able to eliminate these 10 people, as long as the 2 from the Time Inheritance didn't interfere. "Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue?" Yi Qing Han said indifferently. Immediately, Yi Qing Han and the disciples of the 6 Gods Dao sect clashed. Long Zai seemed to be anxious, but there was a trace of craftiness in her eyes. She had clearly deliberately glanced at Yi Qing Han to let Zhuxian Lu find Yi Qing Han. She had been observing Yi Qing Han for the past few days and understood his temper. He wouldn't take the initiative to provoke others, but if others provoked him, they definitely wouldn't have a good ending. Long Zai hoped that Yi Qing Han would clash with the 6 Gods Dao sect so that he would have no choice but to join forces with her in the end. Everyone was curious and looked at Yi Qing Han. They didn't understand where Yi Qing Han had come from and actually dared to offend the 6 Gods Dao sect. Chapter 850. Zhuxianliu's expression turned ugly when his provocation was forcefully rebutted. If a half-step lord of the same level and status had said that, everyone would just watch. However, he was being humiliated by an exalted god. How could he tolerate that? "Do you know who I am? How dare you speak to me like that?" Zhuxian Lu asked coldly. "Zhuxian Lu, your ghost Taoist Liukong's direct disciple, a disciple of the Six Gods Tao sect. What? Do you think everyone in the world will give you face because you're so famous? Yi Qinghan retorted calmly. Sui Xianlu was stunned. He did not expect Yi Qinghan to know him well but not take the Six Gods Tao sect seriously. Could it be that he was not Long Zai's gigolo? Who are you? Sui Xianlu asked in a deep voice. I'm just a nobody. If you think the Six Gods Tao sect can suppress me, then do it. I can't let you have this room. Otherwise, I won't be able to answer to some people. A cold glint flashed through Yi Qinghan's eyes. He suddenly felt that it would be great to fight the Six Gods Tao sect. At least he could fight for 2 or 3 more rooms, and he would not be so aggrieved. If Sui Xianlu knew that Yi Qinghan had been so impolite just for the 2 guest rooms, he would definitely be infuriated. No one had expected that Yi Qinghan would be so impolite just for the rooms. He did not want to stay with the 3 witches. If you two want to fight, there are plenty of places outside the inn. Don't destroy my inn, or the last gust of wind will take all of us away, Long Zai warned coldly. Sui Xianlu could not figure out Yi Qinghan's background. In such a large realm, powerhouses were as common as clouds. Some seemingly simple clans were actually giants, and the Six Gods Tao sect dared not offend them. Yi Qinghan must have his own trump card for him to be so powerful. At that moment, Emperor Yi, Zixian, and Dong Qin walked out in a single file and came to Yi Qinghan's side. Yi Qinghan waved his arms and hugged them like a rich man. He placed his left hand on Emperor Ye's shoulder, and his arms directly wrapped around Zixian and Dong Qin's necks. The two did not resist, looking at Sui Xianlu coldly. Hiss, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Emperor Yi and his 2 companions were definitely the best of the best. Their cultivation levels were even higher than Yi Qinghan's, so how could he have all 3 of them? Why don't you ask the 3 of them if they're willing to give up their rooms? Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. Zixian's eyes were very special. Many people recognized her identity. She was a member of the Purple Emperor's bloodline. Yi Qinghan was definitely the first person who dared to hug a direct descendant of the Purple Emperor. Without a special background, why would Zixian allow him to hug 3 top-grade women at the same time? Sui Xianlu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He was envious of Yi Qinghan. Any one of these 3 people was enough to make him drool, but they were all taken by Yi Qinghan. The heavens were truly blind. Third brother, go investigate this person's background. Sui Xianlu secretly transmitted his voice to a person behind him. The imprint on that person's left shoulder was also a galaxy vortex. It seemed that he was also a descendant of Ghost Taoist Flowing Void. I'm not someone who doesn't understand right and wrong. How can I let 3 great beauties sleep outside the inn? My Six Gods Tao sect is a righteous sect, so I'll give this room to the 3 fairies. If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. Don't let this lowly person take advantage of you. Sui Xianlu pretended to be generous. He suspected that the 3 beauties weren't sincere when they were hugged by Yi Qinghan at the same time. Perhaps they were forced to because of their face or because they couldn't refute. Thus, he pretended to be elegant and generous in order to gain the favor of Emperor Yi and the others. However, many people nodded and praised him. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly. He let go of the 3 women and leaned over the railing. The 3 beauties were very tacit as they rubbed his shoulders and massaged his back. Dong Qin even ran into the room to bring a cup of spirit tea and personally fed it to him. Sui Xuanliu's face turned the color of pig liver. This was clearly a slap in the face. Yi Qinghan snapped his fingers and directly pulled a chair over. He sat down cross-legged and pulled Emperor Yi into his arms from behind. Zixian massaged his back and Dong Qin fed him tea. He was very carefree. To be able to control the world and lie drunk on the knees of beauties is the great fortune of my generation. I wonder if the powerful disciples of the Six Gods Tao sect have such treatment. Yi Qinghan laughed loudly and took the initiative to provoke. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain. What kind of person was this hedonistic son of a bitch? How could he make the three great beauties bow their heads and allow an ant to blaspheme them? Could it be that he had the great demon god Tao body or the 9 revolution chaos Tao body? If they knew that Yi Qinghan came from a small plane without any background, they would definitely explode with anger. At this moment, the 12 people of the Six Gods Tao sect had ugly expressions, especially the Time Inheritor, Qin Yanfei. Her beautiful eyes narrowed as she looked at Yi Qinghan with disgust. She coldly snorted and said, "Fellow Taoists, you must also be almighty experts. Why are you trampling on yourselves to serve this hedonistic son of a bitch?" Long Zai looked at Yi Qinghan's appearance. If he didn't know him well, he would have misunderstood, let alone others. Yi Qinghan had demonstrated the deepest desire of Yi Kuan's hedonistic younger brother. How could he not look like a hedonistic son of a bitch? What he wanted was to confuse others and not put him in their eyes. Moreover, he had plenty of backers behind him. We are happy. If fellow Taoist is envious, you can come and serve us together. Emperor Yi coldly snorted. Hey! This kind of hedonistic son of a bitch who can't even take care of himself is not even worthy of my slippers. Qin Yanfei sneered. Ha ha ha, with three great beauties by my side, what kind of life do I need to take care of? Yi Qinghan laughed and retorted. Humph. Sua Xianlu was incomparably angry. He coldly snorted and said, "Let's go back to our room first. We will settle this matter tomorrow." The 12 of them all went to the 3rd floor, no longer continuing to fight with Yi Qinghan. On the top floor, a cold old man looked down at the farce without any fluctuation in his emotions. He carried a sharp sword on his back, but his eyes were fixed on the Sun-Moon Divine Sword on Emperor Ye's back. Even though it was wrapped in divine clothes and didn't emit any fluctuations of divine power, it still attracted his attention. Sword God Dugu is staring at you guys. It should be the 2 divine weapons on Emperor Ye's back that attracted his attention. This person once killed a master god with a single sword. His cultivation is unfathomable. You guys must not provoke him. Long Zai also noticed Sword God Dugu's gaze and hurriedly transmitted a message to remind him. The Sun-Moon Divine Sword and Star Saber couldn't be kept in the Yin-Yang ring and could only be carried on one's back. Yi Qinghan could only be carried on Emperor Ye's back. No one else could touch him. Can the 4 of you come upstairs for a chat? Sword God Dugu's voice was hoarse and filled with vicissitudes of life. It was unknown how long he had lived. Even his eyes and the corner of his clothes carried a sharp sword qi, which was extremely terrifying. The inn had a total of 5 floors, and there were dozens of master gods. When Sword God Dugu spoke, the other master gods all retracted their auras and no longer stared at Yi Qinghan and the others. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes and looked at Sword God Dugu. He realized that his entire face was covered by a cloak, and only that sword of his had some aura. If he didn't see him with his own eyes, he wouldn't be able to sense his position at all. His sharp eyes could be seen through the cloak, and they could steal one's soul. Yi Qinghan stood up, exchanged a glance with the 3 beauties, and walked towards the top floor. Chapter 851. On the top floor, Sword God Dugu looked at Yi Qinghan's group of 4 and frowned slightly. He didn't think that Yi Qinghan was a spoiled brat. He said indifferently, "The 4 of you, follow this old man." Sword God Dugu led the 4 into the house and put away his cloak, revealing a vigorous face. He looked to be around 60 years old. He was imposing without being angry, making people not dare to look at him directly. The 4 of you are all dragons and phoenixes among men. This old man will not beat around the bush. I want to trade for the divine sword on the back of that chaos dragon inheritor. Anything you want. Sword God Dugu stared at Emperor Yi and directly revealed Emperor Ye's identity. Emperor Yi was shocked. He had never revealed the aura of the Chaos Dragon's origin. Wasn't this old man too strong? No need to be surprised. This old man has lived for so long. If I didn't have a discerning eye, I would have turned into a pile of dirt and scattered with the wind. Sword God Dugu looked indifferently at Zixian and Dong Qin and continued, the two of you have extraordinary origins. One is the inheritor of the Purple Emperor's bloodline, and the other has one of the 10 great physiques, the Celestial Treasure Physique. Perhaps there is one thing I don't understand. The three of you have the potential to become paramount gods. Why would you hang around with this brat and even compromise with him to play with those brats from the Six Gods Dao sect? It was normal for a true expert to look down on Yi Qinghan. He was just a 5 elements Dao physique, and it was even forged. Compared to Emperor Yi and the others, he couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Yi Qinghan smiled mockingly. This old man's words were indeed straightforward. Emperor Yi naturally didn't want Yi Qinghan to be criticized. He snorted and said, "This sword isn't mine. You ask the Celestial Treasure Physique. If she is willing to trade, there is no problem." Oh. So it is the divine sword of the Celestial Treasure Physique. Now that it is on your back, it should be because her divinity isn't enough to touch the divine sword. Such a divine sword should be the life divine weapon of the 10 great physiques. Which one is it? Sword God Dugu's eyes lit up. He viewed swords as his life and only loved swords. If he could become one of the 10 famed swords of primal chaos, his life wouldn't be in vain. Senior, this is the Sun Moon Godly Sword. What are you going to give me in exchange? Dong Qin bowed and said. If Sword God Dugu had his eyes on something, he might as well negotiate with him in a friendly manner. If he failed to reach an agreement, it would be no different from robbing him. Thus, he might as well make an exchange. What do you need? Just tell me. Other than the Over-God Sparks, I can find any other supreme treasures for you. Sword God Dugu said proudly. For a moment, the 4 of them really did not know what to ask for. It seemed like even a Chief God Divine Core was not as valuable as the Sun Moon Divine Sword. Dong Qin frowned. She didn't know what she needed most for the time being. Sovereign Divine Spark. Will 3 Sovereign Sparks do? Sword God Dugu had killed at least 5 sovereigns. Although none of those sovereigns possessed the quintessence of the giant god of primal chaos, sovereigns were still very precious. Dong Qin shook her head. She could condense a Chief God Divine Core. Others' Chief God Divine Cores were ultimately inferior to hers. How about this? Senior Sword God, why don't you make 3 promises in exchange for the godly sword? Yi Qinghan suggested. Sword God Dugu's eyes flashed. 3 promises might seem simple, but if he couldn't fulfill them, he would have to follow these 4 fellows for the rest of his life. In this life, he hated being tied down the most. Ever since he started cultivating, he had always been alone. His sword accompanied him, and he didn't even have an attendant. It was extremely difficult for him to follow Yi Qinghan and the others. Oh, that's right. Senior, I really don't know what I'm lacking. A Chief God Divine Core isn't tempting to us. Just 3 promises in exchange for the Sun Moon Divine Sword. With your cultivation base and the Sun Moon Divine Sword, you might not be the strongest among the sovereigns, but you'll definitely be ranked in the top 3. Dong Qin suddenly realized. If they didn't keep this Leviathan by their side, what else would they want? Sword God Dugu cast a cold glance at Yi Qinghan. He really wanted to cut off that talkative tongue of his. Yi Qinghan smiled mockingly. This old guy must not be offended. Otherwise, he would only be able to save his life if he ran to the second sorcerer god. Let me take a look at the sword first. I'll see if it's worth 3 promises or not. Sword God Dugu's mood was very bad. His impression of Yi Qinghan was even worse than before. Emperor Yi took out the bag on his back and slowly unsheathed the Sun-Moon Divine Sword. The divine might was vast and mighty. The pressure caused the entire tavern to fall into a deathly silence. The terrifying sword intent made people feel despair. The sword hadn't even been unsheathed, but it had already injured people. Sword God Dugu's eyes flashed with radiance. Looking at the sword sheath, he knew this was definitely the real thing. It was impossible for someone to imitate the 10 great primal chaos divine swords to such an extent. Just this sword chi alone was enough for him to study for many years. The 10 great physiques were indeed overflowing with tyrannical power back then. Unless a supreme god appeared, no one would be a match for them. Swish! Sword God Dugu stretched out his hand and grabbed the Sun-Moon Divine Sword. The divine sword trembled unceasingly as if it wanted to fly into the sky. The sword chi rushed into the clouds and almost flipped the tavern over. The sword's whistling sound drowned out the whistling of the monsoon wind outside. The surging sword chi and primal chaos aura covered the sky and earth. Even the supreme gods were shocked. They all rushed out of their rooms and looked at the roof with astonishment in their eyes. Good sword. The most perfect treasure in the world. As expected of the Sun-Moon Divine Sword forged by a supreme god. It's worth it, really worth it. Sword God Dugu was excited. This sword contained sword intent and the aura of a supreme god. It also contained the profundity of the first-generation Sun-Moon Divine Body. This sword was enough for him to make a breakthrough. It was very likely that he would enter the realm of the strongest person below the supreme god. The Sun-Moon Divine Sword trembled violently, trying to break free from its shackles. Its weapon spirit didn't allow anyone other than supreme gods to touch its body. Even if the supreme god didn't break through, they still weren't qualified to touch its body. Sword God Dugu snorted coldly. His entire body turned into a sharp sword, incomparably cold. The entire room turned into an ice cave. The four couldn't help but feel a chill. Yi Qinghan and the others retreated. He emitted a powerful 16th rank origin flame to resist this cold sword chi. Gradually, the Sun-Moon Divine Sword stopped resisting and fell into a deathly silence. Even its divine aura disappeared. Dong Qin couldn't help but take a deep breath. She was intimidated by Sword God Dugu's cultivation. This old monster's strength was definitely close to the supreme gods. The pure sword chi attracted the Sun-Moon Divine Sword, causing it to stop resisting. This sword chi was so pure that it surpassed Gu Qingyu and Li Feng. Sword God Dugu had tempered himself for hundreds of thousands of years to reach this level. It wasn't something that some elites with 3,000 to 5,000 years could compare to. Yi Qinghan and the others were forced to retreat from the room by this aura. Their hair stood on end, and they didn't dare to resist at all. Their cultivations weren't even on the same level. Sword God Dugu became more and more excited. The light in his eyes was even more dazzling than the scorching sun. The old hand holding the Sun-Moon Divine Sword couldn't help but tremble. His heroic face was actually flushed red, as if he had returned to his youth. Alright, 3 promises it is. Here are 3 drops of this old man's essence blood. Summon this old man once and the essence blood will fuse into your body. I will sense it. Every time I use it, it will be 1 less. After 3 times, this old man will no longer owe you anything. Sword God Dugu forced out 3 drops of essence blood. They didn't contain his vitality or energy. They could only be used to summon him. Chapter 852. These 3 drops of blood represented 3 lives. It represented that Sword God Dugu had attacked 3 times. The promise of this kind of person was much more effective than an oath. Since he dared to make a promise, he would naturally fulfill it. Yi Qinghan wasn't worried that he would go back on his word. Dong Qin didn't have to worry either because if Sword God Dugu wanted to act shamelessly, he could just snatch it away now. There was no need to waste time talking about this. Many thanks, Senior. Dong Qin was overjoyed. She quickly kept the 3 drops of blood and treated them like treasures. It made her even happier than treasures. Sword God Dugu nodded and waved his hand, indicating that they could leave. Senior, do you have the Star Saber in your collection? Its ranking is even higher than the Sun Moon Divine Sword. Yi Qinghan rubbed his hands and said with a wretched grin. Sword God Dugu looked coldly at Yi Qinghan and snorted, "Brat, don't try to act smart in front of this old man. These 3 young ladies are innocent and not a little fox like you. Treat them better or I will break your bones." Of course, of course. Whoever dares to bully them will have to step over my dead body. Yi Qinghan said with a deadpan expression. Scram. Don't try to act in front of this old man. I am not interested in the Star Saber. Scram. Sword God Dugu said impatiently. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. He could only lead the 3 young ladies out of the room. He sighed in his heart, what a pity. Such a good opportunity, but he actually doesn't like sabers. The 4 of them went to the 2nd floor absent-mindedly. They were shocked and they saw a large group of experts standing downstairs. They were all staring at them. Yi Qinghan felt uncomfortable being stared at by so many main gods and so many beautiful young masters from rich families. Long Zai was the clearest. Because Emperor Ye's shoulder was missing a weapon, it must have been swapped by Sword God Dugu. Dong Qin had an excited expression while Yi Qinghan was absent-minded. He reckoned that Dong Qin had gotten some benefits while Yi Qinghan didn't get anything. That was why he had such an expression. Long Zai was very smart. He was very observant and could deduce many truths from every word and action. There were also some observant people who noticed that Emperor Yi was missing a weapon from his back. Very few people would carry their weapons on their backs. They would either drip a drop of blood on their weapons or hide them in their spatial rings. If it was carried on his back, there was only one explanation. The level of the weapon was too high and he could not control it. That wisp of sword chi was the purest form of primal chaos sword chi. Even a master god did not dare to move recklessly under that sword chi. One could only imagine how powerful that sword was. If it could be compared to that sword, then the divine weapon Emperor Yi was carrying would naturally not be any weaker. Little girl, is the weapon behind you willing to make a move? I'm willing to buy it. I'm willing to trade for it. A white-haired old man stared at Emperor Yi and said in a deep voice. Old geezer Qing, this old man is also interested in this divine weapon, or rather, I am determined to get it. Whoever tries to snatch it from me will be my enemy. At this moment, a man in a black robe stood out. He had eagle eyes and a nose that was almost as flat as his face. He was extremely ugly. The white-haired old man who spoke at the beginning frowned. When he saw that it was him, he immediately stopped talking. Before Yi Qinghan and company could say anything, the black-robed man spoke again. I'm not interested in divine weapons. I'll give you 10,000 supreme-grade god crystals. This divine weapon is mine, 10,000 supreme-grade god crystals to buy the star saber that was even more powerful than the sun-moon divine sword. Yi Qinghan frowned and said coldly, not selling. Kid, you don't have the right to speak here. If you want to talk to me, you better find out my identity first. Otherwise, you won't be able to see tomorrow's sun. The black-robed man's killing intent flashed. The valiant master gods will cover the sky and press down on Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan groaned and retreated several steps. Only then did he realize that this person's cultivation wasn't much weaker than sword god Dugu. His face turned pale. Yo, Island Master Cheng, you're a dignified island master. How can you force a transaction and scare a child? Moreover, this is my inn. I'm afraid it's not good for you to make a move here. Long Zai twisted her waist and smiled charmingly. Her killing intent dissipated. Cheng Wanli, the island master of Ghost Splitter Island. That island was located in the center of the Dragonwalk continent's South Sea. Although it was an island, it wasn't small. It was about the size of a middle plain. It was a paradise for sinners. Many vicious people were surrounded and annihilated. As long as they escaped to Cheng Wanli's island and submitted to him, they would receive his protection. After so many years, who knew how many evil people had gathered on Ghost Splitter Island? The Six Gods Dao sect wouldn't provoke these people. Boss Long, you're still as feminine as ever. The conditions I mentioned last time are still in effect. Be my woman, and you'll definitely be above everyone else on Ghost Splitter Island. Everywhere you go, you'll be respected by everyone. Cheng Wanli licked Lorgate's teeth with the tip of his tongue and said in a hoarse voice. I'm not worthy of such a noble status, nor do I dare to betray you. I'm used to living in poverty, and I'm not used to people kneeling to talk to me. Just treat me as cheap, don't lower yourself to my level. Long Zai smiled and tactfully refused. Kakik, I like your cheap appearance. Otherwise, I wouldn't come to this godforsaken place every 3 to 5 years. I'm not interested in Flower Sea City or Blood Flower Sea at all. I'm only here for you. Don't wear down my patience. Cheng Wanli smiled sinisterly. Then give up. Don't come here in the future. Even if you come once a day, I won't become your wife. Long Zai said coldly. Humph, let's put your matter aside for now. I want the divine weapon on this little woman, and those 3 women. If you agree, I can give you another 10 years to consider. Cheng Wanli stared at Emperor Yi, Zixian, and Dong Qin. The greed in his eyes was obvious, and he didn't hide it at all. Every dragon had a reverse scale. Yi Qinghan looked at him with anger. He clenched his fists and looked at him with disdain. He said sinisterly, You're courting death. Is there no one to kill the main god? Cheng Wanli's eyes flashed coldly as he stared at Yi Qinghan. His brows were tightly knitted, and his god power flowed and attached to his wrist. He was ready to attack at any time. Whoosh! Long Zai's figure flashed and blocked in front of Yi Qinghan. He said indifferently, Nothing can happen in the inn tonight. If there's anything, we'll talk about it tomorrow. When Cheng Wanli and Yi Qinghan met, Sui Xianlu, who was standing on the 3rd floor, was immediately amused. He had an evil smile on his face as he waited to watch a good show. His identity will be revealed tomorrow. I want to see what kind of monster dared to provoke my Six Gods Dao sect, and then challenge Ghost Splitter Island's Cheng Wanli. Sui Xianlu muttered to himself. His eyes flashed with a gloating smile. Senior brother, I asked around, but no one knows where this guy came from. The young man behind Sui Xianlu whispered in his ear. There's no need to ask. Once he meets Cheng Wanli tomorrow, he won't be able to live past tomorrow if he doesn't have some ability. As long as he makes a move, I'll naturally be able to find out his identity. Sui Xianlu said and returned to his room. Chapter 853. The last night was extremely long. After tomorrow, countless people would gather here. Some came to admire the sea of miraculous flowers, while others came to trade for treasures. Yi Qinghan and the other 3 did not sleep. Instead, they sat cross-legged on their beds to regulate their breathing, trying to be in their best condition. Even if they did not fight tomorrow, it would not be peaceful. In this unfamiliar upper existential plane, they didn't have many friends, nor did they have any factions. They could only rely on themselves. While it was true that the 4 of them could kill a chief god if they joined forces, once the other party had friends, it would be a piece of cake for 2 chief gods to wipe out the 4 of them. Don't split up tomorrow if there's nothing. Be wary of Cheng Wanli, Yi Qinghan reminded them in a low voice. Dong Qin and Zixian nodded. Cheng Wanli was too powerful. The 4 of them might not even be able to fight him to a draw, let alone win. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, Long Zai knocked on the door and said softly, "It's me. Open the door." Yi Qinghan got up and welcomed Long Zai into the room. Seeing Long Zai's serious expression, the four of them could not help but be curious. "What's wrong?" Yi Qinghan asked. "I have a feeling that something big will happen this time. Your cultivation levels are too low, so I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to protect yourselves." "Yi Qinghan, are you confident about breaking through to half-step lord level? Being a high god is too eye-catching, and your combat strength is very weak," Long Zai said bluntly. Yi Qinghan wanted to break through, but he did not have any treasures. Once he broke through, his combat strength of the same level would drop significantly. Even if he had techniques to make up for it, he would not be invincible among his peers. "It's easy to break through. I've been suppressing it because I want to obtain more chaos origins before breaking through," Yi Qinghan said softly. "What do you lack?" Long Zai asked immediately. In order to join forces with Yi Qinghan, he had taken the initiative to help him. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment, then looked up and said, "Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth are all gathered. The great Tao has the order godhood and the karma godhood. I'm still lacking the rest. I need great Tao boundary steels. Apart from the order and karma boundary steels, I need everything else. Great Tao boundary steels and law boundary steels have been lost for many years. They're not easy to find," Long Zai said in a low voice. "I know. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken so long to reach the superior god shrine." Yi Qinghan shook his head. It was too difficult to forge the chaotic Tao body of the 9 revolutions. After all, it was the #1 body in the world, and he had not even completed half of it. "I have a spirit divine herb here that specializes in cultivating the soul and mental power. Consider it as me lending it to you. I hope that you can raise your cultivation level by tonight." Long Zai looked straight at Yi Qinghan as he took out a pot of divine medicine from his universe ring. The spirit divine medicine emitted the brilliance of the great Tao. It was even purer than the Buddhist scriptures and more perfect than the fairies. Its fragrance assailed the nostrils, intoxicating anyone who looked at it. This flower was shaped like a snow lotus, but it was red, incomparably bright red. There were a total of 3 flowers, wrapped in circles. The true medicinal properties were in the depths of the petals, and it was very difficult for the divinity to disperse. Yi Qinghan's face lit up. Such a treasure was extremely rare and priceless. Emperor Yi, Zixian, and Dong Qin are all almighty powerhouses of the soul type. With the 4 of us working together, we should be able to elevate your soul to half-step lord level or even lord level in a short night. How far you can go will depend on your own abilities, Long Zai said confidently. Long Zai said confidently. He still has the spirit divine herb with him. With the help of it, it shouldn't be a problem for his soul to reach lord level, Dong Qin said calmly. The spirit divine herb had been snatched by the divine bird. Dong Qin coveted it very much and could not forget about it until now. The divine bird had been suppressed in the depths of his consciousness recently. It was very unsuitable for it to come out in such a place with such a group of people. Otherwise, it would offend everyone. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and felt that he should elevate his rank first. As for his cultivation and secret skills, he could make up for it later. If he broke through to lord level, his combat strength would instantly surpass Emperor Yi and the rest. It would be a piece of cake for him to deal with a lord like LV Junyi, but he was definitely no match for Qing Wanli. However, there was still hope for him to escape. Long Zai was going all out for revenge. Even lords would fight for the spirit divine herb. Now, he was lending it to Yi Qinghan directly. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged on his bed while the 4 beauties sat around him. Yi Qinghan swallowed a spirit divine herb, and a super terrifying energy rushed into his consciousness. His spiritual power was tense. If he was not careful, the spirit divine herb would turn him into a fool. Long Zai and the other three focused their souls and rushed into Yi Qinghan's consciousness. They each had their own tasks. Emperor Yi and Zixian were in charge of guarding, while Long Zai and Dong Qin were in charge of maximizing the effects of the spirit divine herb so that Yi Qinghan could absorb all of it and not waste a single bit. The spirit divine herb nourished the soul, but it was also attacking it. However, with Zixian and Emperor Yi helping to defend it, Yi Qinghan had endured all kinds of pain before. His soul felt like it was being torn apart and then healed. He gritted his teeth as blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Endure it. This is just the beginning. Long Zai reminded him in a low voice. Yi Qinghan was exasperated. The pain was unbearable. As soon as the spirit divine herb entered his consciousness, his soul was like a dried-up seed, desperately absorbing energy. His soul was nourished and expanded rapidly, quickly charging into half-step Lord level. As soon as he entered half-step Lord level, his soul's rate of energy absorption increased by more than 100 times. At that moment, Emperor Yi sent the spirit divine herb into his body. Boom! His soul was clear, and Lord level seemed to be right in front of him, yet far away at the same time. The strength of his soul allowed Yi Qinghan to have a more thorough understanding of the 5 elements and Tao. He could even see the patterns of the 6 major laws and tens of thousands of minor paths. They were very clear, so clear that he could touch them, yet he could not touch them. The terrifying energy distorted Yi Qinghan's soul. Emperor Yi and Zixian did their best to protect it, not daring to be careless. The 3 souls had fused and were in perfect harmony. Under such circumstances, there were no secrets between the 3 of them. They did not even need to spy on each other to know what each other was thinking. They could even see each other's memories. Yi Qinghan's hidden thoughts, true consciousness, and future plans were all presented in Zixian's consciousness. Zixian looked at Yi Qinghan's memories, and her pupils shrank. Only then did she understand what it meant to be a wolf in sheep's clothing, what it meant to be treacherous, and what it meant to be vicious. Even the divine bird was nothing compared to him. Taking the empty spirit body as an example, not only had Yi Qinghan changed her gene seed, but he had also tampered with her soul. If she went against his will in the future and attacked Guangzhong, her soul would be tortured to death by her own hands. She might not even know how she died. She was his daughter-in-law. Was there a need to be so cruel? However, on second thought, Qin Wentian had the empty spirit body, which was ranked 3rd among the top 10 battle constitutions. It was comparable to a supreme existence. It was very difficult to completely change the gene seed planted by the great demon god. It could betray her at any time, and once it did, she would not be able to control it. Yi Qinghan had made such a long-term plan because he was very meticulous. He had even considered things tens of thousands of years in the future. Chapter 854. Yi Qinghan's plans for the future were each more vicious than the last. His plans were linked together, and he included people from both camps. As long as they were not his teammates, the rest of them would fall into his trap as soon as they had the chance to cross paths. Zixian could not understand at all how a person's brain could come up with such a detailed plan. For her sake, he was willing to destroy half the universe just to achieve his goal. No matter how much Yi Qinghan thought about it, he had not expected himself to be in close contact with Zixian, which led to her knowing all of his plans. At the moment, he was also exploring the inherited memories of the Purple Emperor's bloodline, specifically drawing on memories from the Chaos Era. He had learned many shocking things. The combat strength of the current era and the era of the past could not be compared at all. Once the Chaos Era arrived, everyone's level would drop, except for the few who had survived the Chaos Era. Once time and space were strengthened, the gods' original levels would not be stable enough, and they would return to their original levels in an instant. This was why the combat strength of the same level in the Chaos Era was so much stronger than the combat strength of the current era. Even the combat strength of a combat constitution would drop by more than 10 times, let alone others. As time passed, it was soon the darkness before dawn. The four beauties were still actively helping Yi Qinghan absorb and defend his soul. His soul had grown so much stronger now that it could not be compared to before. His soul could not bear the rapid advancement. Yi Qinghan's face was already beginning to contort. The excruciating pain of being torn apart surpassed all the pain he had experienced before. Lord Long Zai's soul was very powerful, needless to say, while Emperor Yi, Zixian, and Dong Qin were born with superb souls. At the moment, they had to endure inhumane pain while helping Yi Qinghan to advance. They could not imagine what Yi Qinghan was going through. Yi Qinghan's fingers dug into his flesh, and his blood stained the bedsheets. His soul level was drifting between half-step lord and lord. It was only half a step away, but it felt like the end of the world. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall off a 10,000-foot cliff and be smashed to pieces. Humph. Darkness filled his vision. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes, and blood oozed from the corners of his eyes. Even his groans became hoarse and weak. Breakthrough. Yi Qinghan clenched his teeth and roared. His soul was attacking the bottleneck. His soul was growing stronger, but his strength was diminishing. He was exhausted. If not for his extraordinary willpower, he would have given up long ago. Within his sea of consciousness, the golden energy was roaring like the ocean, churning and churning incessantly. Less than 40% of the spirit divine medicine and heavenly treasure divine medicine had been used. Apart from Long Zai, who still had some energy left, everyone else was drifting in the wind and rain. Once Yi Qinghan lost control, Emperor Yi and the others would be buried with him. Everyone, defend. I'll share my soul with him so that he can comprehend the Tao of a sovereign. Long Zai gritted his teeth and prepared to go all out. He did not want to give up halfway. Choosing to share his soul with Yi Qinghan meant that his life was now in Yi Qinghan's hands. The four powerhouses exerted their strength together. First, they pushed the terrifying divine medicine energy into the empty sea of consciousness, preventing it from getting close to the soul. Long Zai slowly moved his soul closer to Yi Qinghan and became one with him. He presented his Tao of a sovereign completely for Yi Qinghan to comprehend. At this moment it was relatively more direct and revealing than being naked. Long Zai had no privacy at all, allowing Yi Qinghan to take whatever he wanted. Yi Qinghan devoured Long Zai's memories and comprehension hungrily. His Tao of a sovereign became clearer. Sovereigns relied on the soul and control of power. It was also a power. A sovereign could overturn rivers and seas, but a half-step lord's might was less than 1/10,000th. There was a fundamental difference between a sovereign and a half-step lord. Yi Qinghan swam freely in Long Zai's soul. It was 10,000 times more enjoyable than masturbating. However, Yi Qinghan did not delve into her other memories. His main target was her comprehension of sovereigns, as well as her experience of breaking through to lord level. With the lesson learned, Yi Qinghan seemed to have gained enlightenment. He began to actively absorb the divine medicine's medicinal properties, drop by drop, faster and faster. The celestial treasure miracle medicine's main function was to calm one's soul, allowing powerhouses to sense the might of a sovereign. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was the first to absorb the celestial treasure miracle medicine's medicinal properties, clearing his chaotic soul once again. His and Long Zai's souls merged into one, so the speed at which they absorbed energy was 10,000 times faster. Long Zai took the initiative to help absorb energy and feed Yi Qinghan's soul. Outside the inn, the storm damaged some buildings. These were buildings that had been around for millions of years and were protected by formations. Unfortunately, they were still destroyed. Half of the pile of rocks that was connected to the mountain outside was destroyed. Tonight's storm was the fiercest. A ray of red sunlight gradually rose from the east, and the storm dissipated without a trace. A sudden clap of thunder rose from the ground, and lightning tore through the darkness. Heavy rain poured down, and under the scouring of the rain, the dry ground was actually suffused with red blood. The ground was damp, and some blood-colored flowers rose from the ground, growing rapidly. Many people in the inn had come to see the formation of this blood-colored sea of flowers. They opened their windows and stared, but they still could not understand how this sea of flowers had appeared. It was growing too quickly. As time passed, Long Zai became extremely anxious. Every year at this time, she would watch the blood-colored sea of flowers. She also wanted to know who had massacred Flower Sea City. This year was especially important. Although it was very vague, she could see that someone was massacring Flower Sea City. Hurry, hurry, hurry. I have something very important to do. Long Zai growled and urged. At this time, 80% of the medicinal energy of the two divine medicines in Yi Qinghan's Sea of Consciousness had been absorbed. There was not much left. His soul was now even more powerful than some sovereigns, and even comparable to Long Zai's. Yi Qinghan mobilized his soul to break through the sovereign bottleneck one last time. Once he succeeded, as long as he had enough divine power and faith energy, he would be able to break through to the sovereign realm without any worries. Boom! His soul was undergoing a qualitative change, changing the divine power within his godhood. It was developing from a relatively high-grade divine power to sovereign's might and primal chaos energy. 10%, 20%, 50%, 60%, in just a short incense stick's worth of time, all 12 of Yi Qinghan's godhoods erupted at the same time. The energy system was completely changed, and all of it was converted into sovereign's might. The amount was much smaller, but the overall energy level did not change. Instead, the destructive power increased by 1,000 times. Boom! The final eruption of his soul successfully broke through the bottleneck. Yi Qinghan's aura instantly rose to the sovereign realm. His soul had reached the sovereign realm, but his true combat strength remained at the half-step sovereign realm. The divine power contained within matched his combat strength. Apart from his soul being stronger, there was not much change. His aura surged, but it dissipated in an instant. Yi Qinghan did not dare to expose such a powerful soul. This was one of his trump cards, and he would not use it unless it was absolutely necessary. In the outside world, many people did not notice the aura in the heaven's #1 room. It was too fast, disappearing in a flash. Even the 4 beauties in the room thought it was an illusion. They were all watching the blood-colored sea of flowers rise from the ground, stretching as far as the eye could see. From time to time, some mysterious figures would appear above the sea of flowers. Chapter 855. In Heaven Room #1, Yi Qinghan was so tired that he could not open his eyes, especially his soul. He had just broken through to Lord level. Although he was excited, he did not move at all. His head tilted, and he lay down on Long Zai's slender thighs. He felt like his head was about to explode, and he wanted to sleep. Bang! Long Zai followed up with a kick, sending Yi Qinghan crashing into the wall. The impenetrable wall was almost pierced through, and the entire tavern shook from the impact. Ouch! Yi Qinghan cried out in pain and could not get up for a long time. You've ruined my plans. You can't do anything right. Long Zai's expression was unpleasant. He broke through the door and rushed out of the inn. At that moment, there was no one left in the inn. They had all gone out to watch the formation of the Sea of Flowers. The Sea of Flowers was the color of blood. It was definitely not a mirage, but something that really existed. Roots broke out of the ground, and the ground was suddenly overturned. Even the soil was red. Some strange figures appeared more and more frequently. They seemed to be fighting, and there were also people who were madly fleeing. However, they only appeared intermittently above the Sea of Flowers. Long Zai had watched this scene countless times. It was heart-wrenching every time, but he had not found any crucial evidence. He could only endure the torture again and again. Long Zai stepped out of the inn and discovered that the Sea of Flowers had turned into 1,000 or even several thousand kilometers away. It stretched out tens of thousands of kilometers. It was a gorgeous red that stole one's soul. Many lords found it unbelievable. The scene was not exactly beautiful. It was just a history of blood and tears from hell. It had only been 10,000 years since Flower Sea City was destroyed. Many people still remembered it clearly. However, it had been destroyed too quickly. The lords had no time to intervene even if they wanted to. No one knew how the once powerful Flower Sea City had been destroyed, or who had destroyed it. On the surface, the Six Gods Dao sect was still investigating. After all, Lord Flowing Light was the Six Gods Dao sect's time heir. However, no one had found anything. There were no crucial clues at all. More and more powerhouses flew over from afar. They had not booked a room, but they had arrived thousands of kilometers away from the city in advance to ensure that they would not be attacked by the storm. As soon as Ji Feng left, they sped up and did not miss the show. Gradually, the representatives were no longer half-step lord-rich young masters. Many people who were purely appreciating the Sea of Flowers appeared. Some of them were powerhouses who wanted to barter. There were even many villagers. Half of them were female cultivators. The blood-colored Sea of Flowers was rumored to be very mysterious. Some people even believed that if one made a wish under the Sea of Flowers, their love would be smooth sailing. The color of blood was the blood of the sovereign god of light, while the drizzle was the tears of the sovereign god of life. The Sea of Flowers was accompanied by a drizzle of rain. This happened virtually every year. This was because there was a rumor amongst the commoners that after the sovereign god of light's tragic death, the sovereign god of life had wept her heart out for an entire year here, moving the entire world. That was why such a phenomenon had occurred. The Master God of Life and the Master God of Flowing Light were childhood sweethearts. Because of her, Flowing Light had rejected countless suitors. However, in the end, he still did not end up together with the Master God of Life. The reason for that was something that only the two of them knew. Step by step, Long Zai walked towards the sea of blood-colored flowers. Her back was bleak, and she no longer looked charming. Inside the inn, although the three beauties were exhausted, they still wanted to take a look at the sea of blood-colored flowers. They dragged and dragged Yi Qinghan out of the inn. Yi Qinghan was completely helpless. He could only swallow a godly medicine and mobilize the soul suppression orb to soothe his exhausted soul. Gradually, he regained control of his body. Looking at the sea of blood-colored flowers, he was shocked to discover that there was something wrong with the soil here. There was something beneath the city of flowers. With his earth origin form, Yi Qinghan controlled the five elements. No matter how secretive the five elements' fluctuations were, they could not escape his eyes. Right now, Yi Qinghan's languid expression was half supporting the three beauties. He was practically a profligate son of a rich family who had gone overboard. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan with envy and jealousy. This was especially the case for Zhuxianlu. He could not wait to beat Yi Qinghan to death. What a piece of trash! How rotten is his life! That's why he became a soft-legged shrimp. Zhuxianlu was furious and jealous. Qin Yanfei looked at Yi Qinghan's disgusting expression. If she believed those profligate sons of the Six Gods Dao sect, they were simply saints in front of Yi Qinghan. I really don't understand what those three women are thinking. They actually threw themselves at such trash. Qin Yanfei muttered to herself unwillingly. The Time Inheritor Shuai Yang, Qin Yanfei's eldest senior brother, smiled indifferently and shook his head. Who cares about them? Remember our purpose for coming here. I can't stand it. This person is even more profligate than the sect's most trashy Wang Hai. No, Wang Hai is simply a pure person in front of him. I just can't stand it. Women are throwing themselves at such a person, and 3 of them are even of the highest quality. What kind of world is this? Qin Yan Fei said angrily. Even a man like me is not anxious. Why is a little girl like you so anxious? Even if the 3 of them don't belong to that person, they won't belong to you either. What are you thinking in that little head of yours? Shuiliang teased with a smile. Senior brother. Qin Yan Fei stomped her foot and pouted unhappily. Her senior brother was actually not willing to speak up for her. Yi Qinghan looked at Qin Yan Fei's anger from afar and was very puzzled. How did he offend this little girl? He was so tired, yet he still accompanied women out for a stroll. This showed how good he was. How did he become a profligate son? From Qin Yan Fei's point of view, Yi Qinghan's face was pale, his limbs were weak, and he was hugging a woman in each hand. Emperor Yi was almost carrying him. If this wasn't a profligate son, then what was? Trash, you can't even walk. Why don't you go and die? Why did you come out to embarrass yourself? Qin Yan Fei seemed to have obsessive-compulsive disorder. She directly ran in front of Yi Qinghan and questioned him. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. Was there something wrong with this woman's head? What does it have to do with you? Yi Qinghan was speechless as he retorted. It has to do with me. People like you are seriously tarnishing my eyes. Please scram. Qin Yan Fei said angrily. You're crazy. I'm standing here. You ran over here, and now you want me to leave. Does Flower Ocean City belong to your family? Yi Qinghan was completely speechless. He really wanted to break this rich princess's head and see if it was filled with water and noodles. You're the crazy one. Is there a man like you? You let 3 girls carry you. Do you have any shame? Qin Yan Fei shouted. Everyone's attention was attracted. They, who did not know the truth, all looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain. They hated him from the bottom of their hearts. Fuck, this kind of trash can even win the hearts of 3 top-grade girls. I am a righteous person. I reached half-step Lord God at such a young age. I am also a clean person. Why don't any girls pester me like this? Isn't that so? I really want to ask him how he managed to get these 3 girls. Everyone was furious. Some people even cursed loudly. They were both envious and hateful of Yi Qinghan. Especially when they compared themselves, they realized that they were much more outstanding than Yi Qinghan. Why was the difference so big? Could it be that all women like trash like him? Chapter 856. Qin Yan Fei's inexplicable anger confused Yi Qinghan. Zixian and Dong Qin were even more surprised. This woman was too much of a busybody. They didn't even feel wronged, so why would she feel wronged? Qin Yan Fei even shifted everyone's attention to Yi Qinghan. The men were envious of Yi Qinghan's luck with women. Many female cultivators looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain. They couldn't understand why 3 women who were prettier than them would bother this trash. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He didn't even have the strength to argue. He wanted nothing more than to lie on the 3 women's shoulders. Seeing Qin Yan Fei's disdainful gaze, he simply hugged the 3 women and said provocatively, "This seat is like this. Now that I lack a mount, are you willing to apply? This lady will kill you." Qin Yan Fei didn't expect Yi Qinghan to tease her instead. Of all the things he said, he actually said that he lacked a mount and wanted her to be his mount. She couldn't bear it anymore and directly drew her sword and charged towards Yi Qinghan. Emperor Ye's figure flashed and pulled out the star saber from his back. The sound of the saber was deafening. The saber aura scared the master gods so much that they quickly retreated, let alone a junior like Qin Yan Fei. Qin Yan Fei's neck was held by the wild saber. She broke out in cold sweat. Before she could pull out her sword, she was rooted to the ground and didn't even dare to breathe. Fellow Taoist, please be merciful. Little junior sister has never traveled before and is still young. Fellow Taoists, please don't be calculative with her. Shuai was shocked and looked at the saber in Emperor Ye's hand in shock. The saber light was so bright that no one dared to look at it directly. Only then did he know that this group of people were not simple. Emperor Yi coldly looked at Qin Yan Fei and said in a low voice, "Little friend, don't speak nonsense. Master's dignity is not something you can blaspheme." Gulp, Emperor Ye's words caused Qin Yan Fei to swallow a mouthful of saliva. Her throat was so cold that it almost caused her to faint on the spot. Emperor Yi withdrew his star saber and retreated back to Yi Qinghan. At this moment, no one dared to make a ruckus. Qin Yan Fei looked at Emperor Yi in horror. She could not understand how a silk pants like Yi Qinghan could have such an exaggerated disciple. "Junior sister, come back," Shuai reprimanded. "Little girl, trouble comes from the mouth. Didn't your master teach you that?" Yi Qinghan asked calmly. "Humph." Although Qin Yan Fei was quite frightened, she still looked down on Yi Qinghan. With a cold snort, she turned around and ran behind Shuai. Her entire body trembled as she did not dare to look directly at Emperor Yi. Zhuo Xianlu's eyes flashed as he stared at the blade in Emperor Ye's hand. His greed was self-evident, but he forced himself to suppress it. Cheng Wanli, on the other hand, did not want to hold back. For beauties and this blade, he wanted them all. However, sword god Dugu was watching from afar, so Cheng Wanli did not dare to act recklessly. Sword god Dugu was alone and did not have any friends. If he were to offend him, sword god Dugu would probably wreak havoc on Ghost Splitter Island. Many unfamiliar master gods had strong thoughts about the blade in Emperor Ye's hand, but they did not say anything. Once the bartering session started, they would probably come looking for the four of them one after another. At this moment, Long Zai still could not find any crucial clues. He slowly retreated to Yi Qinghan's side and said softly, "Miss Zixian, can you see if you can trace back to the origin through these strange scenes?" Zixian shook her head without hesitation and said helplessly, "I'm sorry, but I can't do it. Things happened 10,000 years ago, and the limit of what I can trace back is only a few hundred years. There's no need to trace back to the origin. Do you know where the entrance to the underground is?" Yi Qinghan asked softly. "What entrance? What underground?" Long Zai asked with a frown. "Look at the churning blood soil. It comes from the underground. According to the profound mysteries of the earth origin, it is impossible for the stable soil of the upper plane to churn at will. But here, it churns every season. This can only mean one thing: the soil of the upper plane is unstable. There is only one reason for this instability in the upper plane: there is a very large hole below. The reason why such a scene did not occur before is because there is no water in the underground space, so it is impossible for the soil above to change." Yi Qinghan thought for a moment and said, "This place used to be called Flower Sea City. There are probably many seeds scattered in the depths. There are also some roots that were nourished by the blood water and eventually mutated into blood flowers. Every spring, they will bloom and wither in the summer. This kind of strange flower is not common, but it is not surprising." With a simple observation, Yi Qinghan was able to deduce the reason for the formation of the blood flower sea. He was even able to deduce the existence of the underground space. Long Zai was stunned. He had searched here for thousands of years without finding any clues, but Yi Qinghan was able to deduce it just by looking. If it was true, then he was simply a god. It was not that there were no earth gods here, but who would think of this? Most of the time, they were just curious. "I really didn't know that there was a space here, nor did I know of the entrance. We never tell women about our clan's affairs. This city has been passed down in our long family for many generations. My parents never mentioned that there was another space beneath the city." Long Zai frowned as he tried hard to recall, but he had no recollection of such a thing. Was the city lord's manor located at the Dragon Gate in back then? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. Long Zai's pupils constricted as he asked in surprise, "Who told you that? How did you know?" Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and grunted, "I'm not an idiot. Which building within 1,000 miles can withstand the ravages of the monsoon? Apart from the few buildings nearby, if they weren't the city lord's manor back then, what better choice is there?" Long Zai was speechless and could only nod in agreement. "Let's return to the inn. The entrance should be there," Yi Qinghan said indifferently. "Impossible. I've searched that place countless times. It's impossible for there to be an entrance," Long Zai replied with certainty. "Intelligence determines everything. No matter how high one's cultivation is, a woman is only suitable for giving birth," Yi Qinghan shrugged and said disdainfully. Bang! Zixian and Dong Qin threw him hard and stomped him under their feet. At this moment, even Emperor Yi felt that he deserved it. Yi Qinghan's face was distorted from the fall, and his heart almost stopped beating. Everyone turned to look at him and couldn't help but gloat and laugh loudly. Qin Yanfei was laughing so hard that she was convulsing, and tears were coming out of her eyes. Yi Qinghan covered his face. He felt that his waist was about to be broken by Zixian and Dong Qin's stomp, and tears almost fell from his eyes. "Are the two of you women?" "I'm not talking about the two of you," Yi Qinghan angrily explained. It would have been better if he didn't explain, but once he did, the two were even more enraged. "Are you blind? How are we not women? Take a closer look and see if you're blind." Dong Qin stomped hard and broke one of Yi Qinghan's ribs. She finally got her revenge for the beating she got from that day. "Ah! Stop! Let go!" Yi Qinghan screamed. He wasn't going easy on them, but he really couldn't resist. "I realize that not only are you blind, you're also a retard." Zixian coldly snorted and turned to walk towards the inn. Dong Qin and Long Zai groaned and walked past Yi Qinghan. Only Emperor Yi leaned over to support him, and said emotionally, "Son, you're still the best. You're so feminine. These three women were born in the wrong body." "Master, why do I feel like your intelligence is dropping?" Emperor Yi helplessly asked. How could he say those words in front of everyone? Moreover, he said it in front of four beauties, and the explanation after that was even worse. When Yi Qinghan heard Emperor Ye's words, he was instantly at a loss for words. Chapter 857. When Yi Qinghan was bullied, Qin Yanfei immediately rejoiced in his misfortune. She ran in front of him and stuck out her pink tongue. She made a funny face and mocked, "Trash, they finally saw your true colors. Just you wait." Pa! Yi Qinghan's stomach full of anger turned into a slap and fiercely slapped Qin Yanfei's butt. The crisp sound reverberated in the air like a clap of thunder. Ah! Qin Yanfei did not dodge and felt a burning pain on her butt. She jumped 3 feet into the air, and before she landed, Yi Qinghan had already left. Emperor Yi shook his head. This little woman was indeed asking for a beating. She would not learn if she did not beat her. When Qin Yanfei landed on the ground, her face was purple and her body was trembling with anger. She clenched her teeth and pulled out her sword to rush over and hack Yi Qinghan to death. However, her senior brother's figure flashed and held down her sword-wielding hand. He shook his head and said, "Don't provoke him. He is not a silk pants, nor is he a trash. Otherwise, you would not have been unable to dodge. If it was me, I might not have been able to dodge that slap. How can a trash do that?" Qin Yanfei was so angry that tears were about to burst out. She immediately trembled and angrily roared, "Senior brother! He hit me, hit my butt. Go and take revenge for me. Alright, be good. Otherwise, don't expect me to bring you out next time." Shueliang smiled bitterly. It was really hard for him to serve such a rich princess. Qin Yanfei's cultivation was not bad, but she was too young and did not have any experience. She could not tell right from wrong and only dealt with things according to what she thought was right or wrong. If not for Shuel Yang, this old fox, following her, the Six Gods Dao sect would not have allowed her to come out to train. Humph. I knew you couldn't do it. I'll go and find senior brothers Hua. Qin Yanfei was not satisfied. She turned and ran towards Wuxian Lu while crying. Wuxian Lu was also frightened by Yi Qinghan's slap. The speed was too fast and the angle was too strange. It should not be as bad as it looked. However, the way he walked was really weak, as if he had been too much. It was hard to grasp. Junior sister, don't be anxious. I will beat him up later. You can take revenge however you want. How could he refuse a beauty's request? Wuxian Lu was filled with heroism as he readily agreed. Only then did Qin Yanfei calm down. She looked at the direction Yi Qinghan left in anger. Inside the inn, the five of them were patrolling left and right, but the inn was so small that they could see everything at a glance. There were only a few places that were connected to the underground, and Long Zai had already searched through all of them. You have a high IQ, so why don't you create a tunnel? Long Zai snorted. Yi Qinghan shrugged and closed his eyes. His sea of consciousness replayed the memories of what had happened in the Great Hall of Flower Sea City. He didn't know, but when he fused with Long Zai's soul last night, she knew. At the center of the hall was the main hall of the Dragon Gate Inn. Based on Long Zai's memories, Yi Qinghan arrived before a table and chair. He opened his eyes and reached out to uproot the metal table that was connected to the ground. He lightly stomped his foot and raised his eyebrows. His voice was very thick, but there was no response. The mechanism should be here, but unfortunately, the mechanism to open the tunnel has been destroyed. It will be very difficult to find the foundation of the mechanism. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. I'll listen to your bragging. Long Zai sneered. Yi Qinghan glanced at her and said in a low voice, the foundation of Flower Sea City is completely filled with molten iron. It has already become one with the ground. There is no other way to enter the underground space other than through the secret tunnel. Flower Sea City should have originally been a bottomless land. In the end, the Long family used divine iron to fill it up, forming a huge underground space. Then, they used soil to cover it up and built a great city above it. As time passed, the underground space was only passed down from generation to generation. No one else knew about it. However, the fact that the blood could seep in means that there are other entrances. Yi Qinghan turned around and walked out of the inn. He flew into the air and looked down at the sea of flowers. He deduced the scene of the massacre back then. The place where the blood gathered should be an even lower depression. After eliminating all other places, there was only one place that fit the description. A lake in Flower Sea City had already dried up. Now, there was also a sea of flowers above it, but this one was even darker in color. It was so red that it made people shiver. Yi Qinghan appeared in this sea of flowers and used the earth origin to explore downwards. He found that only a small part of it was made of iron. Moreover, in the depths, it was at most 3 meters thick. Below that was an empty space. It's here. It's only 3 meters thick divine iron. It's easy to penetrate. Moreover, there are cracks in it. Yi Qinghan said to himself. No one paid attention to Yi Qinghan's random movements. However, the Dugu sword god had seen countless people and knew that he was a treacherous person. He wouldn't do anything for nothing, so he kept his eyes on him. Yi Qinghan returned to the inn and said to Long Zai and the others, I've found the entrance. It's at the bottom of the sea of flowers. Help me attract attention. I'll take my son down there to take a look. Leave it to me. Long Zai's eyes lit up. Could it be that there was something he hadn't discovered? They waited until nighttime when the monsoon stopped. Yi Qinghan brought Emperor Yi out of the Red Night and found that there was a sea of people nearby. 99% of the people were outside setting up tents. There were both men and women, and most of them were here to admire the sea of flowers. It was at this moment that Long Zai walked out of the inn. Behind him stood old Three Teng and old Tu Ma. Zixian and Dong Qin also followed. He let out a low whistle and attracted everyone's attention. Everyone, you've seen the sea of flowers today. Tomorrow, we'll start a trade fair. Everyone will trade things for things you don't need. I hope everyone will participate enthusiastically. As the host, Long Zai naturally had to stop it for everyone. However, I must remind everyone that you must not force people to buy or sell. This rule has been in place for nearly 10,000 years, and no one has bullied the people within 10,000 miles. I hope everyone will have a good demeanor and don't throw away the face of the clan and sect behind you. If anyone breaks the rules or crosses my bottom line, then don't blame me for being impolite. Long Zai warned in a deep voice. Dao friend Long, who won't give you face? Don't worry. Everyone agreed, and the nearby villagers cheered. With Long Zai overseeing the village every year, they didn't have to worry about being bullied. Although the celestial divine sect was powerful, the bandits they raised didn't dare to casually slaughter the villagers. It was also because Long Zai was here to watch. Yi Qinghan and Emperor Yi secretly sneaked into the low-lying sea of flowers. They used the earth origin to continuously dive down. They only touched the divine iron after diving for a full 3 kilometers. Yi Qinghan supported the soil, leaving behind a large space. He said to Emperor Yi, "Son, use the star saber to pierce through this divine iron. It'll be 3 meters deep at most." Emperor Yi took out the star saber. It was incomparably sharp and could cut through iron like mud. He dug out the divine iron piece by piece. The divine iron that was 3 meters deep was quickly pierced through. With a light step, it fell down. Once they entered the underground sacred realm, they were stunned by the bloody color. The blood had already solidified, and there was nothing but red. There were thousands of fist-sized luminous pearls that lit up the vast underground space. This should have been a beautiful sacred ground, but unfortunately, there was no spiritual energy at all. Time was completely still, and they couldn't feel the passage of time. It was so quiet that it made one's hair stand on end. Yi Qinghan looked around and found that a mountain had been broken in half. There was a platform on top of it, and a person was lying on it. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan flew up with Emperor Yi and landed on the platform. The person was about 8 or 9 years old. He had delicate features, and it was hard to tell if he was a man or a woman. At this moment, his face was still rosy, and all of his physiological functions hadn't been damaged. It was as if he had just been placed here yesterday. Chapter 858. Other than this child, there was nothing else in the underground space. Yi Qinghan carried the child and said to Emperor Yi, "Let's go back first. Once we figure out this child's identity, we will be able to unravel the truth of what happened back then." The two of them brought the child back the way they came and quickly returned to the surface. Before they even popped their heads out, they saw sword god Dugu staring at them. Shua, Yi Qinghan was shocked and took a few steps back while carrying the child. "Senior sword god, you are looking for me?" Yi Qinghan asked in shock. Sword god Dugu frowned as he looked at the child in Yi Qinghan's arms and asked softly, "There's a space underground?" The child was brought out from underground. Yi Qinghan quickly nodded and asked, "Senior, you and Master God Flowing Light are of the same generation. Do you know who this child is?" Sword god Dugu shook his head and said indifferently, "I'm not familiar with Master God Flowing Light, but I understand his character. This child has been underground for so long and is still full of vitality. The place below should be a place where time is still. Flowing Light placed him there, so he should be his descendant. You can ask Master God Life about this, she should be able to give you an answer. How can we wake him up? Yi Qing Han asked curiously. He was sealed by eternal time. Of course, only the Master God of Time can undo the seal. Only the Master God of Time of the six gods Tao Sect's Master God of Time can undo it. Sword God Dugu said calmly. Yi Qing Han went silent for a moment and bowed slightly toward Sword God Dugu. He smiled and said, Senior, please keep this a secret for me for now. I'll take my leave first. Sword God Dugu was too lazy to look at Yi Qing Han. He was a straightforward person and would not interact with a fox spirit like Yi Qing Han. Yi Qing Han brought the child and Emperor Yi to sneak into the inn. Before they even entered the guest room, they were stopped by Qin Yanfei. Qin Yanfei's eyes were filled with anger as she asked in disdain, I didn't expect a trash like you to not only be lecherous, but also love children. Beast! Yi Qing Han was furious. Why was this damned woman haunting him? Get lost. I'm not in the mood to mess around with you. If you dare to pester me again, I'll drag you into the room, strip you naked, and torture you. Yi Qing Han said angrily. Qin Yanfei was immediately frightened and ran back to the third floor. When she reached the third floor, she glared at Yi Qing Han unwillingly. Yi Qing Han shook his head. This kind of woman actually dared to come out into the pugilistic world. She didn't have any ability, yet she still caused trouble. Fortunately, she had a strong backing. Otherwise, she would have been snatched away and raped 100 times over. When she died, not even her corpse could be found. After returning to the Sky Room 1, Long Zai saw him carrying the child and could not help but ask in surprise, didn't you go to the underground space? Where did this child come from? Of course it's from the underground space. Time is still there, and the child has not changed at all. He should be a child of your Long clan. If he's not your brother, then he should be your uncle. You should recognize him properly and then think of a way to undo his seal. He should know something. Yi Qing Han placed the child on the bed and fell asleep on the bed. Long Zai was dumbfounded. She was not even a year old back then and only had a few fragmented memories. After so many years, how could she still recognize someone from the Long clan? This is a good thing. At least one more member of the Long clan survived. Dong Qin looked at Long Zai's dazed expression and could not help but comfort her. Right. Right. I should be happy. To be able to be alone in the underground space in grandfather's room, it means that he should be a direct descendant of the Long clan. Unfortunately, I don't know who he is. Long Zai said excitedly. Senior God of Swords said that he was sealed by the eternal time technique. If he wanted to undo the seal, only a Master God of the time lineage would be able to undo the seal. The Master God of Life should know his true identity, Emperor Yi said in a low voice. The Master God of Time. Long Zai frowned. She did not know if she should trust the current Master God of Time. The six gods Tao sect and the Long clan no longer had much affection for each other. She did not even know if the Master God of Time had been bribed by Ghost Taoist Flowing Void. However, the Eternal Time technique was a Master God level secret technique. It was strictly passed down. Apart from the head disciple of the Time Inheritance and the Master of Time, no one else knew it. I'll go ask the Master God of Life. Long Zai pondered for a moment and decided to take the risk. Yi Qing Han was drowsy. He had just fallen asleep after being tired for so long. In his days, he heard that Long Zai was going to the six gods Tao sect to ask the Master God of Time. He immediately opened his eyes and said lazily, once the news of this child's birth spreads, Ghost Taoist Flowing Void and the other participants from back then will probably flatten the Dragon Gate Inn. We won't be able to escape. If I were you, it would be best not to trust anyone. Then what do we do? I don't have a way to break the seal. Long Zai said helplessly. Don't you think, there are 2 time inheritors in the inn. Suppress them, steal their memories, and secretly learn the eternal time technique. Yi Qinghan said coldly. This isn't good. What if the time inheritance didn't betray grandfather? Wouldn't we be pushing them to the other side? Long Zai frowned. The most heartless and cold people in the world are the human hearts. It's better to be safe than sorry. This is just my personal opinion. It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Yi Qinghan said tiredly, this is my personal opinion. Do as you see fit. I'm going to rest for a while. My brain is about to turn to mush. With that, Yi Qinghan went back to sleep. The 4 women were at a loss. At crucial moments, they still needed Yi Qinghan to make the decision. In terms of cultivation, they couldn't be compared to Yi Qinghan. However, Dong Qin and Zixian had an inexplicable trust in him. As for Emperor Yi, there was no need to talk about it. As for Long Zai, although he had only interacted with Yi Qinghan for a short period of time, he knew that Yi Qinghan's brain wasn't something that an ordinary person could compare to. Something that he couldn't figure out after thousands of years, Yi Qinghan solved in a single day. The gap between them wasn't small. Therefore, he could only suppress his thoughts for now and wait for Yi Qinghan to recover. On the 3rd floor, Qin Yanfei told Shuelyang about the child. Shuelyang was also an extremely intelligent person. He felt that Yi Qinghan wasn't as bad as he appeared to be, so he advised, Xiao Fei, don't provoke him. That child's origin is unknown. Who knows where he found him? No, show me the child's clothes again. Qin Yanfei had a clearer view. When she showed the child's clothes again, Shuelyang couldn't help but have goosebumps. That child's clothes are exactly the same as the clothes of Huahai City's Long family. No one wears this kind of clothes for a long time. Could that child be? Shuelyang said in shock. Someone from the Long family? Didn't they go extinct? Qin Yanfei asked in shock. Do you still remember what Master called us here for? To find clues about Huahai City's destruction, this child is the key. Go and inform Master, I'll go and get the child. Shuelyang immediately said. Yi Qinghan also didn't expect that Qin Yanfei's words would reveal the child's matter. Not only did Qin Yanfei inform the Time Master, she also informed the other 5 law masters of the 6 Gods Dao sect. In the main sect of the 6 Gods Dao sect, Daoist Empty Ghost's eyes flashed with disbelief and shock. Chapter 859. Inside the inn, Yi Qinghan had just fallen asleep. He did not want to wake up even with the 4 women chattering beside him. At this moment, Shuelyang knocked on the door. Emperor Yi opened the door and looked at Shuelyang, asking, "What's the matter? Could it be that your family's princess went missing and you're here to ask for her?" Shuelyang smiled awkwardly. He could ask for her, but he did not ask for the child. He immediately bowed and said, "You've misunderstood. I'm indeed here to ask for someone, but it's not my junior sister. It's that child. He's my grandmaster's son, which means he's my martial uncle. You're really here to ask for her? Who's your martial uncle? You've got the wrong person. The person you're looking for isn't here." Emperor Yi was vigilant and immediately shut the door. Asterisk bang bang bang, asterisk Shuelyang knocked on the door in an orderly manner. He did not seem to have given up. Long Zai frowned. How did this Shuelyang know that the child Yi Qinghan brought back was the Long family's son? Even now, Long Zai had forgotten about the child's clothes. "Open the door. I want to ask him how he knows that the child is my Long family's, and whether that girl knows about it." Long Zai said in a deep voice. Emperor Yi opened the door and turned to let Shuelyang in. Long Zai reached out to close the door. She flipped her hand and locked it around Shuelyang's throat. Shuelyang did not have any chance to resist. "Tell me, How did you know that the child is from the Long family? Long Zai asked coldly. Boss Long, it's a misunderstanding. This child is my martial uncle. How could I not know about the Long family's clothes? Shuai Yang hurriedly explained. Long Zai turned to look at the sealed child on the bed. He was indeed wearing very little clothes. The green dragon on his left shoulder was very lifelike, and the sea of flowers on his right shoulder was very colorful. It was very gorgeous. Other than you, who else knows? Does that girl beside you know? Long Zai asked in a deep voice. I know. I told her to inform the teacher. Shuai Yang looked at Long Zai in confusion, not understanding why she was so nervous. Long Zai pushed Shuai Yang away in a fit of rage. He turned around and rushed up to the third floor. When he saw Qin Yanfei's excited face, he once again launched a sneak attack. He dragged her downstairs and sent her to the Sky Room 1. Long Zai was filled with murderous intent. If he really couldn't do it, he would really kill her to silence her. Tell me, who else did you tell about the child? Long Zai asked coldly. Qin Yanfei was scared silly by Long Zai's killing intent. This was the first time she saw a master god releasing killing intent towards her. She was unable to withstand it at all, her teeth were chattering. Ha ha ha. Qin Yanfei said while trembling, Senior, I have already informed Master. Ancestor Ling of the Life Inheritance, and Long Zai and the others were so angry that they were trembling. It seemed that this talkative woman had told a lot of people. Who else? Long Zai asked angrily. I have already told the ancestor masters of the Six Gods Dao sect. Qin Yanfei shrunk her head, not daring to look at Long Zai's murderous eyes. Emperor Yi and the others did not know whether to laugh or cry. The information that they wanted to protect was all revealed by this stinky girl. Moreover, it was done so quickly. What should we do? Zixian shrugged and asked. Long Zai and the others looked at the sleeping Yi Qinghan and found that he had no intention of waking up. Shuai Yang looked at Qin Yanfei helplessly. He knew that she had caused trouble again. Boss Long, why are you so concerned about the child's information being known by our Six Gods Dao sect? This child is the orphan of our Six Gods Dao sect's ancestor. We should be the ones worried. Shuai Yang looked at Long Zai in confusion. He suddenly remembered that Long Zai was also surnamed Long and was so concerned about the child's safety. Could she also be a member of the Long clan? Lock the two of them up. Use the lives of Qin Yanfei and Shuai Yang in exchange for the child's life. I want their master to have no choice but to help me undo the eternal time seal on his body. Long Zai looked at the child and clenched her fists. However, she did not know that the sovereigns had already taken action. In the Six Gods Dao sect, Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong sent out a communication talisman. It streaked across the void and disappeared in a flash. In the Dragonline Plain, the Killing God Dao was the most famous assassin organization. Their business covered any place and any force. As long as they could afford it, they would kill even the top of the older generation, let alone sovereigns. The Godslayer sect had a total of 36 branches, and each branch controlled hundreds of cities. They were merciless and ruthless in their attacks. There were terrifying lords in each branch. If more than 10 half-step lord-level assassins worked together, it was not impossible for them to assassinate a lord. This was an organization that struck terror into the hearts of major organizations. Xianxi City happened to have a branch, and the person in charge was sovereign god Ling Tian. He had attained his Dao as an assassin. He came and went without a trace. His movements were strange, and very few people could capture his movements. Since his debut, none of his targets had been spared. Sovereign god Ling Tian wore a ghost mask. It was a green-faced ghost with frightening fangs. He took out a communication talisman, frowned, and muttered, "This old fox. I almost lost my life in order to take on his previous business. To think that he still has a tail and left behind an orphan. Sovereign God Ling Tian pondered for a moment. He clapped his hands and summoned more than 10 black-clothed men. They all wore green-faced ghost masks, but there was a number on their forehead of different sizes. Kill the boss, Long Zai, and a child wearing the clothes of the Long family. He's currently unconscious, so don't kill the wrong person, right? There's also a Silk Pants. I don't know his name, but he has 3 beauties by his side. It's obvious that he's someone the client hates. Let's do him a favor and treat him as a gift. Go. Ling Tian waved his hand. Yes, my lord. Do we kill the 3 women? The leader asked respectfully. The client didn't say. Just give one of them as a gift. Just kill that Silk Pants. Do it now and don't leave any evidence. Be quick and complete the mission before the people of the 6 gods Dao sect enter Flower Sea City, the green-faced ghost said hoarsely. Yes, my lord, the black-clothed men said in unison. Shua. More than 10 black-robed men flashed and disappeared into a palace, diving into the darkness. These black-clothed men were all half-step over god assassins. They were merciless and had never failed. Once they failed, it was equivalent to death. The god-slaying path didn't allow failures. Within the Dragon Gate Inn, on the 2nd day, Yi Qinghan got up and saw a group of people standing in his room, especially Qin Yanfei, who was so aggrieved that she did not dare to raise her head. He knew that something bad must have happened. However, he did not know that Qin Yanfei's nagging had caused Ghost Daoist Flowing Void to pay special attention to him. As a result, the people from the Killing God path had one more target, and that was him. What's going on? Why is it so lively? Yi Qinghan had a good night's sleep and was full of energy. He stretched and asked. Everyone in the 6 gods Dao sect knows about the child, including Flowing Ghost Daoist, Long Zai said helplessly. Yi Qinghan trembled. His fingers trembled as he asked hoarsely, then why aren't you running? Are you waiting for death? Chapter 860. Yi Qinghan's question made everyone roll their eyes. He had been lying there the entire night and no one could wake him up. Now he was asking why he didn't run. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan jumped up and tidied his clothes. He said to the stunned crowd, take the child and leave. It's not safe here. Since Ghost Daoist Flowing Void could make Flower Ocean City disappear in one night, he can do the same to all of you. Yi Qinghan was still worried about Long Zai and the child's safety. He didn't expect that he would be targeted by the god-killing Dao. I don't believe that my ancestor Flowing Void did this. You liar. Qin Yanfei said angrily. He. Yi Qinghan sneered and said to Qin Yanfei, I knew that a stinky girl like you is incapable of accomplishing anything. I should have killed you yesterday. Dao friend, I want to say that you are just guessing. My ancestor Flowing Void has been investigating the truth behind Flower Ocean City's destruction. How could he be the culprit? Shuai Yang didn't believe it and questioned. Humph, good luck to you. If you know too much, you will be killed. Yi Qinghan said with disdain. This kind of inexperienced child thought too highly of the world. It was as if the world was his parents. After Yi Qinghan finished speaking, he looked at the inn and found it empty. He couldn't help but ask curiously, where are the others? They are at the Mystic God Valley 150 kilometers away. The barter has already started. We were going to go there, but you were unconscious and didn't wake up. So we waited here. Emperor Yi replied. Dong dong dong, Yi Qinghan's heart suddenly sped up. He couldn't help but frown and think, something's not right. Even if Ghost Daoist Flowing Void wants to kill Long Zai and the child, I shouldn't feel such a strong sense of danger. Do you feel anything? Yi Qinghan looked at Emperor Yi and the others and asked. Emperor Yi, Dong Qin, and Zixian all shook their heads. They didn't feel anything strange. Only Long Zai's expression was ugly. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but feel surprised. He had a nagging feeling that someone was targeting him. You guys should leave first, Yi Qinghan reminded Long Zai in a deep voice. Boom! A low voice rang out, and the originally quiet inn immediately echoed. Long Zai was shocked. He gently raised his finger and signaled everyone to be quiet. He lowered his voice and said, "Someone has touched the trap of the inn. It's definitely not Ting Lao-san and the others. They know the inn like the back of their hand and would never touch anything that they shouldn't touch. A stranger has come in." The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He looked at Qin Yanfei and said in disdain, "If Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong is clean, why would anyone come looking for us if you didn't inform anyone else but the peak masters of the Six Gods Tao sect?" Shuelyang and Qin Yanfei could not help but look at each other in dismay. If what Yi Qinghan said was true, then Flowing Sky Ghost Taoist was too good at acting. He was so pretentious that the entire Six Gods Tao sect had been deceived. "You guys stay here. I'll go out and take a look," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. "I'll go with you," Emperor Yi quickly said. "The two of us can go too. After all, we're not the target," Zixian and Dong Qin also quickly said. Yi Qinghan thought about it and agreed, so he didn't refuse. However, he didn't expect that with the three of them, the god-killing Tao sect's people would instantly lock onto their target. The four of them pushed open the door and looked at the empty inn. They could see everything, but there was no one else. Yi Qinghan narrowed his eyes and looked around. He activated his soul to its strongest state. He couldn't see the assassins, but he knew that they were hiding in the Dragon Gate Inn, and there were many of them. All the assassins had locked onto Yi Qinghan. A playboy accompanied by 3 supreme-grade women was very discerning. He knew that Yi Qinghan was also one of the targets, but he didn't attack immediately. Instead, he waited for an opportunity. There are a total of 17 people. 8 on the second floor, 4 on the third floor, and 3 on the first floor. We don't know where the other 2 are, but we can confirm that there are 2 of them. Our escape routes are all sealed, Yi Qinghan whispered. Actually, there were not only 17 people this time, but 19. However, 2 people from the god-killing Tao sect were heading to the place where everyone was gathered. They threw out a large number of treasures to attract everyone's attention. They were doing their best to buy time for their teammates and kill them silently. Their cultivation base is probably supreme grade among half-step lords. We can't fight them head-on. On average, 2 of them can take on one of us. If 4 of them work together, they can kill a lord. As for the other 2 whose positions we don't know, they're definitely the best of the best. Let's find a chance to get out of the inn. Yi Qinghan was on high alert. His hair stood on end. He knew that they had encountered a formidable enemy this time. Dong Qin, Zixian, and even Emperor Yi did not notice any of the assassins. They could not help but be surprised. How did Yi Qinghan know? They would never have guessed that the god-killing Tao sect's targets included Yi Qinghan. Now, they were emitting a faint murderous intent toward Yi Qinghan. That was why their positions were exposed. Let's retreat first and discuss our escape route. Yi Qinghan retreated slowly and returned to his room. His suppressed heartbeat suddenly accelerated again. Bang, 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 sweat appeared on Yi Qinghan's forehead. He frowned. He could not understand why this group of assassins would target him but not Emperor Yi and the other 2. Why? I really don't understand. I did not offend anyone important in the upper planes. Why would this group of assassins target me? Yi Qinghan could not figure it out no matter how hard he racked his brain. There must be a motive to kill someone. This was especially true for assassins. They would not be so bored as to come and kill him. This could only mean that someone had offered him a price. He could not imagine that he was just an accessory for killing Long Zai. He was the kind that was given away. If he knew, it would be strange if he did not crush this group of assassins. Target you? Why would they target you? Shouldn't they be targeting us? Long Zai asked curiously. I don't know. When I went out just now, I could clearly feel the killing intent of that group of people towards me. Yi Qinghan rolled his big innocent eyes and scratched his head. After thinking for a long time, Yi Qinghan looked at Qin Yanfei and asked, Did you mention me to anyone in the Six Gods Dao sect? Qin Yanfei shrunk her head and did not dare to look into Yi Qinghan's eyes. She muttered, I only told sect master and ancestor that you are very annoying, Kacha. Yi Qinghan clenched his fist as killing intent shot out. He stared at Qin Yanfei. If not for the fact that this group of assassins were ruthless, he would definitely put his blade on this stinky girl's head and use her as a hostage. However, after thinking about it, the group of assassins did not know Qin Yanfei. A hostage was useless. Kill our way out. Don't fight in the inn. Try to lure the people from the gathering here. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Emperor Yi and the others took out their weapons and prepared to kill their way out. The two of you, open your mouths. Yi Qinghan looked at Shuiliang and Qin Yanfei and said coldly. Ah. Shuiliang and Qin Yanfei were stunned and opened their mouths to ask why. However, Yi Qinghan's hand trembled and two golden lights rushed into their mouths. Before they could spit them out, they turned into strands of energy and rushed into their bodies. It's nothing. It's just a little bit of poison. It should be enough to kill a dragon. If you want to live, you have to cooperate with us and charge out. Otherwise, you will be buried with us. Yi Qinghan's eyes were emotionless as he said heartlessly. Qin Yanfei looked at Yi Qinghan angrily. Only now did she realize that she should not have treated him as a good-for-nothing. Chapter 861. Below the Dragon Gate Inn lay 3 corpses. They were the corpses of Teng Lao San and the others. The 3 of them did not even have time to resist before they were killed. One could only imagine the strength of this group of assassins. Yi Qinghan gestured and whispered, Boss Long and I will be in charge of the assassins. My son will be in charge of soul attacks in the room and find out where they are. Zixian will be in charge of protecting my son and the child. Once she finds out where the assassins are, someone will definitely come to assassinate them. At that time, all you need to do is wait. No one raised any objections. Everything was ready. Yi Qinghan summoned the star-twisting vine and had it extend its vines to cover the entire inn. He wanted to find the assassins. Pai Xiu was also summoned. It controlled the surrounding space, and Yi Qinghan would sense the slightest fluctuation in space. Whoosh, Yi Qinghan and Long Zai stepped out of the room. The two of them had their backs to each other as they cautiously looked around. They realized that the entrance of the inn had become a death door. Once they got close, they would be attacked by more than 10 people at the same time. If they wanted to leave, they would have to kill this group of people. The assassins' positions were changing rapidly. Although they could sense their presence, they could not find their location. The two of them activated their souls to their strongest state. They were both at the Lord God level, so their senses were extraordinary. Go to the main hall, Yi Qinghan whispered. The two of them moved slightly, and a dagger appeared above them without any warning. It swept past Long Zai's head. Whoosh, when one person moved, the others followed in an orderly manner, filling in the gaps and blocking all the blind spots. Yi Qinghan and Long Zai could not dodge. As the group approached, Yi Qinghan's frenzy lost its effect. However, he reacted quickly. With a wave of his hand, frenzy disappeared and a black dagger appeared. He slashed through the air and destroyed everything in his path. Boom! There was a loud collision, and a sharp sound pierced their eardrums. A black figure fell into the distance. Yi Qinghan almost stepped through the metal plate and stabilized himself. However, there were still people filling in the gaps and stabbing his left rib. PSSH. Yi Qinghan sucked in a breath of cold air as the dagger pierced his flesh. His left hand tore through the void and grabbed the assassin. He lifted his knee and smashed it toward the assassin's head. Bang! The assassin had heavily injured Yi Qinghan's left rib, but he had paid the price with his life. He had not expected Yi Qinghan to be so fast and powerful. Yi Qinghan had directly blasted his head apart with a knee strike. The godhead did not even have time to escape before it was tightly bound by the star-twisting vine. Yi Qinghan felt as if his blood was about to freeze. The dagger is poisoned. Yi Qinghan growled, reminding Long Zai. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan channeled the essence of fire towards his left rib, and a top-tier 16th grade divine flame directly burned away the poison. The air was filled with a vile stench that made one dizzy. Shuai Yang and Qin Yanfei, who had just rushed out of the room, felt their legs go soft and almost fell to the ground. Dong Qin had the heavenly treasure battle body, and her entire body was filled with treasures. She was already immune to all poisons, and poisons had no effect on her. However, the assassins did not have any killing intent toward her, and she could not find them either. Out of the 17 assassins, one had fallen. The 3 assassins that were fighting Long Zai retreated immediately after clashing. They did not fight to the death. The room fell into a deathly silence once again. Are you alright? Long Zai did not even turn his head. He only knew that Yi Qinghan was injured. Although he was anxious, he did not show it. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. The other party's divine weapon was obviously specially made to extract blood and release poison too. The top of the dagger was wide, and it was easy to enter but difficult to exit. Therefore, it was still stuck in his body and could not be pulled out. Blood flowed continuously. Although the poison had been burned away, the pain was still unbearable. I'm fine. Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and replied. Yi Qinghan steeled his heart and pulled out the dagger. The origin of wood surged and quickly healed his injuries. His dragon blood boiled and provided him with the power of blood, and his left rib quickly recovered. Just as Yi Qinghan was recovering, the assassins moved again. This time, 13 figures appeared. 2 of them pounced toward Dong Qin, Shuai Yang, and Qin Yanfei, while the remaining 11 pounced toward Yi Qinghan and Long Zai. The sound of a zither resounded in the room, and 10,000 melodies covered the entire inn. Anything that came into contact with the zither music would appear. Hua! The moment Emperor Yi discovered the assassins, he immediately triggered the melody. A long rainbow exploded from the assassin's body, and the figure appeared in front of Yi Qinghan's eyes. Yi Qinghan and Long Zai were overjoyed and counterattacked. Long Zai's fingers actually grew sharp claws like a wolf's claws. With a swipe of his claws, the stable space shattered like rotten wood. The 4 assassins revealed their true forms and were shocked by the light emitted from their bodies. Before they could react, Yi Qinghan and Long Zai were like wolves in a flock of sheep. Each of them broke the head of an assassin, and the powerful soul of a master god shattered the soul within the godhead. With a flip of their body, they grabbed another assassin. Their necks were broken and their souls suppressed. In the blink of an eye, only 12 of the 16 assassins were left. This time, the remaining assassins became much more obedient and hid themselves again. The sound of the zither continued, rising and falling. Emperor Ye's eyes were tightly shut, and his soul split into billions of pieces, following every strand of the melody. As long as the assassins made a move, they would not be able to escape from his divine sense. Zixian protected Emperor Yi by his side, and the child was behind the 2 of them. An austere aura filled the air, causing one's hair to stand on end. Only now did Qin Yanfei realize that she had caused a huge disaster. Ghost Daoist Flowing Void was really the vicious beast of the past. The strongest assassin, number 1, frowned. He realized that the zither music was too strange, and it could directly expose the assassin's location. With Yi Qinghan and Long Zai's help, they would definitely not fail. Damn it, is this silk pants really a silk pants? He clearly has the cultivation of a master god. Our intelligence was wrong. He wants to kill us. Assassin number 1 was extremely angry. Assassin number 2 looked at assassin number 1. These two were the strongest, and even Yi Qinghan could not discover their tracks. The two exchanged hand signals, meaning that number 1 would be responsible for attracting the main force, and number 2 would be responsible for killing Emperor Yi in the room. Assassins would only be useful if they directly killed Emperor Yi. Otherwise, if the two master gods worked together, they would be able to wipe out this group of people from the god-killing path. Number 1 nodded. He was already extremely close to the cultivation of a master god, and he had even succeeded in assassinating a master god before. That was why Master God Ling Tian was not worried about giving this mission to him. Number 1 slowly approached Yi Qinghan from the other space, and there was not even the slightest ripple in space. Whoosh! Number 1 attacked. He appeared out of thin air and directly attacked Yi Qinghan's throat. As long as he dodged, his attack would pierce through Yi Qinghan's head. If he did not dodge, he could only take the attack head-on. His speed was too fast, and there was no trace of him at all. Yi Qinghan did not even have time to defend himself, and could only reach out to grab his dagger. The 5 elements gathered in his hands, and the god-severing gloves exploded with a dazzling divine light. Boom! Assassin number 1's strength was definitely comparable to a master god's. With lightning speed, he directly shattered the god-severing gloves. The origin of metal attached itself to Yi Qinghan's palm, and the origin of fire rushed toward the assassin. Yi Qinghan only felt a bone-piercing pain like maggots in his bones. After a shrill roar of anger, Yi Qinghan roared and clenched his large hand, directly grasping the assassin's dagger in his right hand. His left hand swung the dagger and sliced through the void, stabbing toward assassin number 1's throat. His right leg kicked toward the assassin's thigh, trying to force him to give up on the dagger. Bang! Chapter 862. More than 10 assassins attacked Long Zai at the same time, making it impossible for her to help Yi Qinghan. Assassin number 1 wanted to eliminate Yi Qinghan first. His strength was not comparable to that of a main god, so he was the easiest to kill. Apart from Yi Qinghan and Long Zai, no one else was a threat. Thus, assassin number 1 did not want to give up on his dagger. He twisted his upper body, dodging the dagger's attack, and kicked Yi Qinghan back. He was unparalleled in close combat, and both of them were kings of the same level. The bone-piercing pain did not deter them. Instead, they became more and more courageous. Long Zai lived up to her name as a main god. The flexible sword in her hand transformed into a heavenly dragon that attacked all 10 assassins at the same time. However, she had to defend and attack at the same time, so she could only protect herself. She could not split herself to help Yi Qinghan. Assassin number 1 spun the dagger in his hand wildly, wanting to cripple Yi Qinghan's right hand. However, Yi Qinghan was no pushover either. His strength was boundless, and he forcefully caught the dagger in his hand. His 5 elemental Dao form erupted, and he forcefully pushed the assassin back more than 10 meters. The flames burned the sky, melting the ordinary metal in the surroundings. Even the Dragon Gate Inn was set ablaze. "Let go of me!" Yi Qinghan roared angrily. The dagger had already pierced through his palm. If he hadn't been holding onto it with all his might, assassin number 1 would have long since shattered his wrist. Assassin number 1 was too powerful. His divine power poured out, and he actually managed to block the attack of a 16th grade divine flame for a short period of time. The icy aura diminished, and in an instant, it seized one's soul. Their eyes met, and the green-faced demon's ferocious expression appeared. Yi Qinghan's elbows and knees transformed into the sharpest divine weapons. He attacked wildly as if he had no regard for his own life. He forced assassin number 1 to retreat again and again. Crack, crack, crack. His bones shattered inch by inch like divine blades. Blood dyed the yin red, and as the fire burned, it grew stronger and stronger. In the end, assassin number 1 was unable to withstand Yi Qinghan's torrential attacks. He gave up on his dagger, retreated to a corner, and actually disappeared into thin air. Yi Qinghan was in so much pain that his heart was convulsing. There was not a single part of his body that was undamaged. The bones in his body were broken, and some of them had even pierced through his flesh. Assassin number 1 did not have it easy either. He curled up into a ball in the alternate dimension and growled in pain. His leg was almost completely broken by Yi Qinghan's kick. Fuck. Where did this information come from? Bastard, what kind of profligate son is this? If he is, then who else in the world isn't? The number 1 killer was burning with anger. He already had the intention to retreat. If he continued to fight, he might not be able to kill the target. This group of brothers that he had painstakingly cultivated would all die. At this moment, the second assassin was quietly approaching the Sky Room 1. Yi Qinghan was entangled by the first assassin, and Dong Qin was also entangled by another assassin. Although their combat strength was higher than his, the other party's movement technique was strange and could disappear at any time. In this narrow space, it was very difficult to kill him in a short period of time. Long Zai was also entangled by 7 or 8 assassins. He managed to injure 2 of them, but he was unable to kill them. All he could do was stall for time. As for Shuai Yang and Qin Yanfei, the 2 of them had to join hands to barely keep their lives. Fortunately, the assassins did not have any killing intent towards them. Otherwise, the 2 of them would be the first to die today. Assassin number 2 was listening to the zither melody. He did not even open the door, but he quietly appeared in the room. Suddenly, his pupils shrank, and his hair stood on end. Just as he was about to retreat, his body seemed to be enveloped by the will of a supreme god, and he was unable to dodge at all. Zixian opened his eyes. His pupils flickered with blue and purple light, and in an instant, they turned into a green color. Freeze for me. Zixian strenuously used his soul energy to freeze assassin number 2 in place. Emperor Yi gave up on playing the zither, and instead drew his star saber. With a horizontal slash, the saber slashed across assassin number 2's head. The powerful assassin number 2 did not even have the chance to scream. Even his godhead was cut open by Emperor Yi. How could his soul withstand the 10 great soldiers of the primal chaos 10 greats? He was eliminated on the spot. The heavens number 1 room was also cut into pieces. A corpse flew out of the hall from the 2nd floor and landed heavily on the ground. The assassins were stunned. Assassin number 2, who had escaped from the hands of a supreme god, was actually eliminated the moment he made his move today. Could there be another supreme god in the room? However, if Emperor Yi and Zixian joined hands, they could definitely be considered as a supreme god. After all, the 2 of them had the inheritance of a supreme god, and Emperor Yi even had the supreme god's godhead. Retreat. Assassin number 1 no longer doubted his judgment. The intelligence was seriously wrong. If the battle continued, they would all be wiped out. Wang. Emperor Yi had just killed assassin number 2 and played the zither again. Now, whoever moved would die. The assassins all hid themselves, but they still stayed in the inn. They did not dare to move recklessly. If they touched the melody, their positions would be exposed. Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and stared ahead. He knew that assassin number 1 was near him. He healed most of his right hand and slowly spasmed violently. He was ready to forcefully blast assassin number 1 out of the alternate space. A tyrannical aura rushed into the sky, startling the gathering 300 miles away. Many experts turned to look at the Dragon Gate Inn. They could not help but be shocked and they saw the flames soaring into the sky. Sui Xianlu frowned. He looked to his side and saw that Shuai Yang and Qin Yanfei were not there. He immediately asked, "Where's Xiao Fei? Where's Shuai Yang? They seem to still be in the inn." A young man immediately replied. "Damn it, let's go back and take a look. If something happened to Xiao Fei, Master will kill me." Sui Xianlu was shocked. He flew into the sky and rushed towards the Dragon Gate Inn. Xiu Xiu Xiu. The 9 young disciples of the 6 gods Dao sect followed closely behind. They were as fast as lightning. The 300 miles in the upper plain was different from the 300 miles in the middle plain. They had to run as fast as they could. Some sovereigns were also curious. They looked at each other and prepared to take a look at the Dragon Gate Inn. Boom, Long Zai's aura erupted. The sovereign's divine aura was vast and mighty. He pierced through the roof of the Dragon Gate Inn with a sword. After today's battle, he would not stay in the Dragon Gate Inn anymore. There was no need for this place to exist. Roar, the sword whistled into the sky and tangled with the tyrannical aura. It turned into a true dragon, twisting space and time as it looked down on all life. Yi Qinghan swung his sword wildly. With a sweep of his blade, he uprooted all the buildings that could be demolished. The assassin had nowhere to hide. "You two go and protect the children," Yi Qinghan said to Dong Qin and Shuai Yang. Swish swish swish, Dong Qin brought Shuai Yang and Long Zai into the number 1 room. The battlefield was Yi Qinghan and Long Zai. The two of them stood back to back. Their divine senses were tense as they waited for the other to move. The number 1 assassin did not dare to move. He was secretly anxious. If he did not leave now, even he might not be able to leave. However, if he abandoned his teammates, the punishment he would receive when he returned would be even more painful than death. Only when Long Zai moved did the sovereigns in the assembly know that something big had happened. They did not have to think anymore. They all flew into the sky and charged toward the Dragon Gate Inn. The sovereigns moved extremely quickly. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived above the Dragon Gate Inn. They saw that the inn had been torn down. From above, they saw that Yi Qinghan was actually fighting side by side with Long Zai. That tyrannical and terrifying aura was not that of a silk pants. It was clearly that of a top expert of the younger generation. There were still a few corpses lying in the main hall of the inn. The green-faced demonic masks were very easy to recognize. Soon, someone confirmed their identity. "It's people from the god-killing Dao." Sword God Duga frowned. However, he did not make a move. Instead, he waited for Dong Qin to make a promise. Chapter 863. A group of powerhouses surrounded the Dragon Gate Inn. At that moment, the inn had been turned upside down and was badly ventilated. Sui Xianlu looked at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. His aura was on par with a lord's, and he was bathed in a river of blood. He could not help but be shocked. He could not understand how he, who was still a playboy yesterday, could unleash such terrifying combat strength. Many people were stunned by Yi Qinghan. At that moment, he was like a killing demon. His clothes were torn, but he was still able to stand shoulder to shoulder with a lord. These famous powerhouses were very familiar with the strength of the killing god path. Those who could attack were definitely top-tier existences of the same level. Even Long Zai was injured, but Yi Qinghan was still alive. This meant that his strength had surpassed all the half-step lords. "Why don't we let them go? We'll leave too." Long Zai was worried that Ghost Taoist Flowing Void would arrive, so she was prepared to compromise. Seeing so many people appear, Yi Qinghan did not want to expose himself too much, so he nodded in agreement. Let's retreat," Yi Qinghan said softly. The two of them slowly returned to the second floor with their backs against each other. Emperor Ye's music stopped abruptly. Assassin number 1 saw an opportunity and left first. The remaining 9 assassins followed closely behind. The group of lords outside did not want to offend the killing god path, so they all made way for them. As soon as the assassins left, Yi Qinghan and the others immediately heaved a sigh of relief. This group of people did not seem to have any lords, but they were the most difficult to deal with. Get ready to leave, the further the better. Fuck, I got attacked for no reason. This time, I killed so many of their assassins. The killing god path probably won't let me go. Yi Qinghan was helpless. He glanced coldly at Qin Jianfei, his anger still unquenchable. Qin Jianfei was shocked by Yi Qinghan's domineering aura and did not dare to say anything else. How was this a playboy? He could even sweep her away with one hand. Long Zai looked at Yi Qinghan apologetically. She did not expect Yi Qinghan to take the hit for her. If it were not for him, she and the child would not have been able to escape today. Should we split up? Long Zai suddenly did not want to be separated from Yi Qinghan. This group of freaks had decent individual combat strength. Once they joined forces with her, 3 to 5 chief gods would definitely not pose a threat to them. However, whether or not they would leave together was up to Yi Qinghan. Long Zai knew Yi Qinghan well. He was an absolute lover and would never give up his life just because they had been intimate. Yi Qinghan hesitated, not because he was worried about Long Zai's safety, but because he was considering where he should run to if they split up. He was unfamiliar with the upper plane, and the god-slaying path was so powerful. If he ran into the enemy's base camp, even if he was a lord, he would be crushed into pieces, let alone not being a lord. Cough cough, let's go together. How can I let you run around alone with the child? Yi Qinghan said seriously. Long Zai was so touched that her eyes turned red. However, she did not know that Yi Qinghan was only willing to follow her because he did not know the way. In addition, he had also offended the god-slaying path. The god-slaying path would probably pursue them relentlessly. Even if they did not follow Long Zai, they would still be hunted down. Then let's leave quickly. Long Zai said excitedly. Wait, bring this brat with us. Then contact the current chief god of time and ask him to help us remove the seal on the child. Yi Qinghan grabbed Qin Yanfei and said coldly. Qin Yanfei did not dare to resist and allowed Yi Qinghan to lift her up. She shrunk her head and tears of grievance were about to fall. Shueliang wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing Qin Yanfei's frightened look, he immediately said, "Fellow Daoist, you can take me as a hostage. Master will definitely remove Junior Master's seal. My junior sister has never traveled before and is very timid. Please don't lower yourself to her level. Go and inform your master. If you want this brat to live safely, then obediently wait for my message. If she dares to inform anyone else in the Six Gods Dao sect, I will ask the villagers to rape this brat before killing her. After killing her, I will feed her to the dogs." Yi Qinghan threatened sternly. Qin Yanfei's legs went soft from fear as she cried, "Senior brother, save me. Woo, I was wrong. Don't cry. Without my permission, if you dare to say another word, I will strip you naked and let the world see." Yi Qinghan coldly reprimanded. Qin Yanfei immediately pursed her lips as her body trembled. Indeed, evil people need to be dealt with by evil people. Only when Yi Qinghan became ruthless did she know the consequences of offending him. Shueliang did not dare to refute and could only follow Yi Qinghan's decision. Emperor Yi and the others naturally would not refute Yi Qinghan's decision. Long Zai carried the child and stepped out of the room. Yi Qinghan grabbed Qin Yanfei's collar and carried her out of the room. The group quickly stepped out of the inn, but Cheng Wanli looked at Long Zai and the others with an evil smile. "Did this old man allow you to leave? If I want something, there is nothing I can't get. Boss Long, since you have offended the people of the killing god Dao, why don't you follow me? Once you reach the Ghost Split Island, no one will be able to harm you. Cheng Wanli said indifferently. Long Zai frowned as he looked at Cheng Wanli and said coldly, Senior Cheng, can you be a little more shameless? Don't force me to flip out. Now, go away. We are leaving. Flip out? I like wild horses the most. They are wild yet extremely charming. How can this old man let go of such a fine specimen? Cheng Wanli snickered and clapped his hands lightly. Hundreds of powerhouses charged out of the sea of flowers in the distance. They were all infamous villains. Although none of them were lords, none of them had a cultivation base lower than a half-step lord. They had also been through hundreds of battles and were vicious in their attacks. These 100-odd powerhouses were all powerhouses that Cheng Wanli had recruited over the years. There were too many to count, and they were being hunted down by many organizations. Many young masters from sects and clans were angry, but they did not dare to say anything. After all, the powerhouses behind them did not follow them. Sword God Dugu stood with his sword in his arms, still not interfering. He could not wait to fulfill all three of Dong Qin's conditions today, so he was waiting. Long Zai's face was filled with anger. Cheng Wanli was still causing trouble at this time. It was simply outrageous. What do you want? Long Zai said angrily. What do I want? Haven't I told you many times? Split Ghost Island is missing a mistress and a few concubines. The few of you are the best candidates. As for this little chaos, how dare he speak so rudely to me? I'll bury him on the spot today. Cheng Wanli glared at Yi Qinghan with murderous intent. Yi Qinghan was puzzled. He mumbled to himself softly, could it be that I'm so handsome that I get implicated every time? Why is it that things that have nothing to do with me are always related to me in the end? Can you lend me a small condition? I'll return it to you if it's within my means in the future. Yi Qinghan looked at Dong Qin and asked calmly. Dong Qin nodded. She had 3 conditions anyway. It did not matter if one of them was missing or missing. Yi Qinghan grinned evilly at once. He looked at the group of evil powerhouses and said hoarsely, I'm the kind of person who hates complicated matters the most. I'll never split a problem that can be solved in one go. From today onwards, Split Ghost Island will disappear. Shua. Yi Qinghan's hand trembled as he threw Qin Yen Fei to Dong Qin. He summoned Zhong Kuang and said to Sword God Dugu, Senior Sword God, I'm here to exchange for a small condition. It's too simple for you. You get rid of this old ghost, and I'll deal with the rest of the trash. Is that okay? Chapter 864. Sword God Dugu looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. It was not that he thought Yi Qinghan was difficult to deal with, but he was more concerned about the group of villains behind him. There were about 130 of them, and all of them were half-step lords. Even he would need a long time to kill them all, but Yi Qinghan wanted to deal with them himself. You alone? Sword God Dugu asked in return. Yes, I'm alone. If you don't believe me, we can make a bet. If I kill this group of people first, and you kill this old man later, I'll consider this condition useless. You still owe Dong Qin 3 conditions. If I kill these people later, I'll owe you 2 conditions. How about that? Yi Qinghan said calmly. I don't believe that your conditions are worthless, Sword God Dugu said bluntly. Then I'll trade 3 conditions for one of your conditions. If that doesn't work, I'll trade my Star Saber for one of your conditions. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Yi Qinghan was speechless. This old man did not trust him at all. I'm not interested in sabers, so I'll trade your 3 conditions. I hope they'll be useful to me. Sword God Dugu agreed to Yi Qinghan's challenge. Cheng Wanli's expression changed immediately, and he said coldly, Old man Dugu, this has nothing to do with you. You and I will mind our own business. You'd better not provoke me, or you won't be safe no matter where you go. You'll have to pay back what you owe. I hope you won't be able to make me feel uneasy after today. Sword god Dugu slowly released his grip on his sword and placed his fingertips on the hilt. The group of people immediately dispersed, and even the sovereigns ran far away. Long Zai looked at Yi Qinghan worriedly. His opponent was a group of half-step lords, and they were all murderers. They were the devil of devils. With so many of them working together, even a lord would have to retreat. Could he really do it alone? Retreat. Yi Qinghan stomped on the ground. His hair twirled in the air and danced in the wind. He walked forward with his frenzied sword in hand. His tall and straight body exuded a domineering aura, and the ground beneath his feet shook. Qin Yanfei looked at the playboy before her and really wanted to slap herself. How was this a playboy? Was he blind? The group of experts from Ghost Splitter Island grinned and laughed. They looked at Yi Qinghan with disdain. The cruelty in their eyes made one's hair stand on end. Where did this idiot come from? Ha ha ha, you don't know my name, do you? A powerful half-step lord laughed maniacally and mocked. This group of people was indeed full of evil. Moreover, they were well-known existences. Any one of them could scare off an entire city. The slightly weaker families did not dare to offend any of them. However, they met an even crueler person. No, they met a killing god. I was once called Kill God. Yi Qinghan's aura soared to the heavens. His voice was like a sudden clap of thunder, causing the spectators dozens of li away to feel a chill. His aura was changing. Elements of the 5 elements moved. His god body was sparkling and translucent. His tattered battle robe fluttered even though there was no wind. He ignored more than 100 experts in front of him and grinned. His smile was so cold that it sent chills down people's spines. You don't know me, and there's no need for you to know me in the future. I'm just letting some people remember me and not provoke me. Otherwise, I'll uproot the 6 gods Dao sect or the god-slaying sect, let alone Ghost Splitter Island. Boom! Yi Qinghan's 12 godheads poured out divine power. At that moment, his power was already sovereign power. Its quality was a level higher than that of a half-step lord. A 10,000-foot-long rainbow pierced through the galaxy. Wielding his sword, he suddenly accelerated. Ignorant child. No matter how powerful your aura is, you're still trash. I'll show you what a killing god is. Jin Tianhu, the leader, roared furiously. His divine power roared, and the 3 divine swords on his back flew into the air. When they were unsheathed, the sword aura tore through the void. Earth bind, draw a circle on the ground. Yi Qinghan stomped his foot. The ground within a 50-kilometer radius cracked and rose into the sky. Tens of thousands of waves rolled up and dust filled the air. Earth Origin transformed into an earth dragon that coiled around the legs of the opposing powerhouses and pulled them into the ground. In my name, I command the 5 elements. Fight! Yi Qinghan growled and slashed through the void with his sword. Metal, wood, water, fire, and Earth Origin transformed into battle dragons that followed Yi Qinghan as they swept through thousands of kilometers. The sea of flowers was swept into the void, drowning the area in front of the long men in. Humph! Everyone snorted coldly and tried to move their legs. However, they discovered that their legs seemed to be tightly gripped by the earth. They could not pull them out at all. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan swept the 5 battle dragons and swooped down, slaughtering his way into the crowd. The moment he attacked, the world collapsed, and blood stained the sky. He broke several divine bodies right away. His aura shredded the corpses. The star-twisting vines wrapped around them and devoured their flesh and blood. Countless vines wrapped around a godhead. Even the souls of the dead could not escape. Hum! Hum! All the powerhouses drew their swords and slashed wildly at Yi Qinghan. Only then did they realize that he was ridiculously powerful. Boom! Yi Qinghan's dragon blood boiled. The energy in his entire body erupted at this moment. His peak combat strength was revealed. With the might of a half-step lord, he forced all spells to submit to him. With a single slash, he broke the opponent's half-step lord god weapon. Who could withstand this attack? Hiss! 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 Zhou Xianlu and the others gasped as they looked at the center of the battlefield in horror. A tornado tore through the earth. The people of Split Ghost Island were all caught in the battle. Whoever tried to escape would die. They could only fight to the death. They had never seen anyone so powerful. Yi Qinghan was best at fighting the strong with his strength. He was fighting with his life on the line. His strength was boundless. No one could withstand a single blow from him. Dragon scales began to appear, attaching themselves to his legs and arms. His heart was also protected. Yi Qinghan did not defend at all. He raised his sword and attacked. In the blink of an eye, he had killed more than 10 powerhouses. Combine your shoulders. Zhen Tianhu was furious. His sword turned into lightning and tore through the chaos. He surrounded Yi Qinghan tightly. Yi Qinghan did not care. His long sword danced in a circle and destroyed all the attacks. He stomped on the ground and turned into a sharp sword. Wind mark. Swoosh. 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 Hundreds of figures attacked their opponents at the same time. No one knew which one was Yi Qinghan's real body. They could only resist with all their might. Only when they shattered the illusions did they realize that they had been tricked. Pft. Violent and domineering, Yi Qinghan blasted a powerhouse's body. Even his flesh and blood were shaken into nothingness. His sturdy godhead shattered, and his soul let out a shrill cry. Bodies flew everywhere. Yi Qinghan did not even blink. Only then did everyone understand what a real killing god was. Genesis Splitter. Yi Qinghan rose from the ground and soared into the sky. He swooped down from the sky and attacked Zhen Tianhu. Zhen Tianhu was shocked. He controlled the 3 divine swords to block, but the 3 swords were turned into rotten wood under Zhong Kuang's crazy suppression. They were directly shattered. Just as he said, Dao Mango split the sky and earth. A crack appeared in the Milky Way, and a spatial storm was torn out. No! Island Master, save me! Zhen Tianhu cried out in fear. He realized that his legs were still bound by the ground. He could not dodge at all. He could only watch as Yi Qinghan fell from the sky. He could only ask Cheng Wanli for help. Chapter 865. Cheng Wanli's hand trembled. Before he could even make a move against the solitary sword god, his side had been completely annihilated by Yi Qinghan. Sword god Dugu was stunned as well. He realized that Yi Qinghan's combat strength was ridiculously powerful. He did not seem like a half-step lord at all. Instead, he was as powerful as a lord. Boom! Yi Qinghan's saber slashed down on Zhen Tianhu's head, and the ground was split open, leaving behind a 1,000-mile ravine. The saber chi pierced through the divine metal underground, and the underground space almost collapsed. Suddenly, the earth shook, and dust soared into the sky. The restraining force of the earth was actually broken by Yi Qinghan himself, and the experts were blown away. Zhen Tianhu was directly cut into pieces. Not even a single drop of blood was left behind. All of it was extinguished by the blade energy, and the corpse was split into pieces. Of course, only a few hard bones remained. Vomit. The princes and princesses standing outside had never seen such a terrifying scene. They were so frightened by Yi Qinghan's cruelty that they vomited. Yi Qinghan's killing intent surged as his battle intent soared to the heavens. He was like a true killing demon. His clothes were all shattered as he used his divine power to form a golden armor. From afar, no one knew whether to call him a war god or a killing god. I was once called Kill God. Yi Qinghan's words reverberated in everyone's minds. The younger generation gulped as they recalled how they had mocked him for being a silk pants a few days ago. It was truly fortunate that they had not angered him. Sword god Dugu hadn't made his move yet. He looked at Yi Qinghan with interest, as if he didn't care about the previous bet. However, Cheng Wanli also couldn't help those people. Earth roar. Accept my wrath. Roar roar roar. The earth heaved up and down, as if a giant dragon was roaring. The earth 1,000 li away was boiling, overturning the sky, wanting to devour the mountains and rivers. The sun and moon disappeared, and the sky immediately darkened. Ah! Demon! The people from Split Ghost Island had gone mad. Although they were cruel, they only targeted the weak. None of them were like Yi Qinghan, who could kill hundreds of half-step lords without breaking a sweat. Fire burns the heavens, exterminates all laws. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's entire body was bathed in the river of fire, destroying everything within 100 li. The center of the battlefield was set ablaze, and the earth was burned into nothingness. Turning rotten wood into spring, a tree piercing the sky. Yi Qinghan mobilized the start-whining vine and stabbed it into the ground. It transformed into a sharp sword and pierced through the earth. It instantly grew to a height of 30,000 meters and pierced through the bodies of many experts. The 5 elements of heaven and earth were all under his control. Yi Qinghan had never unleashed his true combat strength before. Now that he had, the half-step lords were still fine, but only then did the half-step lords realize that no matter how many half-step lords there were, they were nothing in the face of Yi Qinghan. In my name, I command the origin of metal, turn it into a berserk state and destroy everything. Whoosh 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 dot whoosh. Countless heavy swords appeared out of thin air, all of which were condensed from the origin of metal, slashing toward the enemy. Only the origin of water was scarce. The soil here was filled with blood, so Yi Qinghan could not mobilize the origin of water. The enemy began to panic. They no longer had the will to fight and wanted to escape. Cheng Wanli was furious. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, Ghost Fisher Island was finished. Bastard, how dare you! Cheng Wanli bellowed threateningly. Yi Qinghan turned around and grinned mockingly. He said calmly, "There's one last move," the foppish smile. Everyone's pupils constricted. They saw Yi Qinghan plunge his saber into the ground. He formed a seal with both palms, and dragon blood roared all over his body. Dragon might soared into the sky. Dragon transformation. Roar. Yi Qinghan's human body had transformed into a dragon's body. This was not an illusion, but a true metamorphosis from a human body into a heavenly dragon. His physical body was torn apart, and dragon scales covered his body. 100,000-foot-long heavenly dragon rose into the sky and spun continuously. Its speed became faster and faster, and a huge vortex appeared in the middle of the battlefield. The ground was pulled up, forming an earthen dragon. All the soil above the underground Saint Realm disappeared, and the underground Saint Realm appeared before everyone. The 4 great origins of metal, wood, fire, and earth appeared, and 4 heavenly dragons appeared. Together with the true dragon that Yi Qinghan had transformed into, the 5 dragons intertwined and spun faster and faster. The underground Saint Realm was almost pulled out, let alone the group of half-step lords. Everyone panicked, especially those from Ghost Fisher Island. They did not have the chance to escape even if they wanted to. The earth bind was gone, but the dragon spinning caused them to lose control of their physical bodies. No. No. Spare me. I'm willing to submit. Ah. Less than half of the remaining powerhouses could not join forces and struggled on their own. How could they break free from Yi Qinghan's restraint? This move was a combination of several secret skills. Coupled with the true dragon's body, its power was limitless. Unfortunately, its name was too tacky. It was called Dandy's Smile. Gradually, the spectators began to retreat, running further and further away. The underground Saint Realm appeared before everyone's eyes completely. At that moment, Long Zai was utterly impressed by Yi Qinghan's intelligence. She had spent thousands of years trying to solve the problem, but he had found the answer in just a moment. Looking at his heroic spirit, her heart was in a mess, and her face flushed red. Showing off, humph. Zixian snorted. She understood Yi Qinghan somewhat. After all, he was only a lesser god back then. She knew that he was unfathomable, but there was no need to make such a big scene in a fight. Once this bastard refines the 9 transformations Chaos Dao physique, he'll probably be even more powerful than a natural 9 transformations Chaos Dao physique. Dong Qin curled her lips. She was very unwilling to accept that one of the 10 great physiques had lost to a 5 elements Dao physique forged from a mortal physique. In the blink of an eye, half of the 100 demons were left. Only now did they know what a killing god was. The people they killed were all weaklings. It was nothing. Unfortunately, it was useless to beg for mercy now because they were all pulled into the vortex. Ah! Yi Qinghan roared at the sky, mobilized the power of heaven and earth, and dove into the depths of the vortex. Roar! Deafening dragon roars rang out, causing the earth to tremble. The ruins of Flower Sea City all disappeared. More than 60 experts were blown away by Yi Qinghan's energy like kites with their strings cut and fell to the ground. The surface of the underground sacred realm was covered with countless godly iron. Now, it had already become one and was incomparably hard. More than 60 bodies crashed into the godly iron, causing the underground sacred realm to completely collapse. The last inheritance of the Long clan was also destroyed. Bang bang bang. All the corpses exploded into pieces. A river of blood bathed the underground Saint Realm. The internal organs floated, and the smell of blood rushed to the sky. Blurg. Devil. Some of those who had never witnessed a massacre could not take it at all. Even high gods and half-step lords had never seen such a gory scene. Almost 100 half-step lords had died at the same time. Who could withstand such pressure? Long Zai's stomach churned, and he turned his head away, not daring to look directly at her. Qin Yen Fei rolled her eyes and fainted from fright. Yi Qinghan returned to his original form and clapped his hands. With a wave of his hand, Quang Zhong, who had fallen into the depths of the ground, returned to his hand. He said to Sword God Dugu indifferently, "It seems like Senior is purposely going easy on me. However, this Junior won't go easy on you. If you don't want to kill this old ghost, that's fine too. However, this means that you owe me a condition." Sword God Dugu snorted coldly. His sword slashed out from the east, causing the entire world to submit. It was as if heaven and earth were about to be destroyed. Chapter 866. The Dragon Gate Inn was razed to the ground, and the Sea of Flowers was destroyed by Yi Qinghan alone. 5 elemental Dao body, peak battle, killing until the gods vomited. The name of killing god was not undeserved. Soon, Sword God Dugu's attack attracted everyone's attention. Yi Qinghan was not interested in watching the Sword Dao. Take advantage of the chaos and leave. If we don't leave now, we won't have another chance. After Yi Qinghan finished his powerful attack, he swept up Qin Yen Fei and looked coldly at Shuel Yang before tearing space apart with the others to escape. Qian Shi City, Killing God Path Branch. Assassin number 1 brought some other assassins back and knelt in front of Master God Ling Tian, not even daring to raise his head. In the history of the God-killing path, there has never been a failure, and there has never been such a great loss. Number 1, tell me what happened. Lord God Ling Tian looked down at the assassins with a green face and fangs, and his voice was extremely cold. My lord, it's a problem with the gift. He is not a silk pants, his soul is at the Master God realm, and his fighting strength is terrifying. He could withstand 3,000 of my attacks and did not retreat a single step. His hand was pierced by my dagger, but he held it tightly. I could not kill him even after using all my strength. Number 1 replied respectfully. Then who killed number 2? With so many people working together, could it be that they could not kill the main target, Long Zai? Ling Tian asked again. Gulp, number 1 swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Thinking about number 2's tragic death, he could not help but sweat. Number 2's death was too humiliating. He had just entered the room and probably did not even have the chance to breathe before being killed. There should be another Master God in that group. He is a zither expert and can track the traces of our brothers. I discussed with number 2. I would attract the firepower while he went to kill the zither expert. However, he was killed the moment he opened the door. That zither expert and the silk pants were the main reason for our failure. The information that the customer gave us was completely wrong. Number 1 said in a deep voice. However, this subordinate is responsible for the failure of this mission. Please punish me, my lord. Number 1 took the initiative to ask for forgiveness. Perhaps the punishment he would receive would be much lighter. I am a fair judge of rewards and punishments. If the information is completely wrong, then the enemy is equivalent to 3 overgods. Even if I go personally, I may not be able to succeed. Moreover, I don't even know what's going on. All of you wait here. I'll go meet them personally. Ling Tian's figure gradually disappeared. He had long left the branch. Fortunately, Yi Qinghan had escaped in advance. Otherwise, if Ling Tian intercepted them, all of them would have been wiped out. Ling Tian's speed was extremely fast, and he was definitely a top-notch existence among the overgods. He controlled the Tao of slaughter, and his movement techniques were top-notch. In just half a day, he had appeared in front of the Dragon Gate Inn. The profound mysteries of the world collapsed, the laws wailed, and the sword Qi swallowed up the river. Sword God Dugu was still fighting, forcing Cheng Wanli to retreat step by step. His body was riddled with sword scars, and he was on the verge of death. If it wasn't for him resisting with all his might, he would have died a long time ago. Ling Tian looked down from afar and saw a sea of blood. It seemed that many people had died. There were still 2 assassins from the Tao of slaughter hiding in the crowd. Ling Tian flickered lightly, and there was no fluctuation in space at all. He directly swept the 2 experts away without alerting anyone. The 2 assassins couldn't resist Ling Tian at all. They couldn't help but be shocked. When they turned around to look, they saw that it was a superior of the branch. They hurriedly said respectfully, "Greetings, my lord. What happened in the Dragon Gate Inn? Where's the target?" Ling Tian asked with a frown. Reporting to my lord, Cheng Wanli brought over 100 experts from the Ghost Splitter Island and prepared to snatch the 3 top-notch women beside Long Zai and that silk pants. In the end, the assassins were terrified. When they thought back to Yi Qinghan's madness, goosebumps rose all over their bodies. What exactly happened? Hurry up and speak. Sovereign God Ling Tian said furiously. Boom! The 2 assassins were so frightened by Ling Tian's terrifying aura that they knelt on the ground. They said in horror, the target, the silk pants, went on a rampage. With his strength alone, he brutally killed over 100 half-step lords from the Ghost Splitter Island. Those powerhouses were all top-notch half-step lords in the world. They were famous for killing. However, the self-proclaimed Tao of slaughter only used the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to kill all of them. Ling Tian frowned. With so many experts, it would take a long time for a lord to kill them all. How was this a freaking silk pants? Bastard, How dare you trick me? Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong, if I find out that you deliberately set me up, I'll tear your six gods Dao sect apart. Ling Tian looked at the battlefield. To be able to create such terrifying power, it was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. He had actually treated him as a freebie. When he thought about this, he felt like an idiot. Rather than saying that the responsibility lay with assassin number 1, it was more appropriate to say that he was the one responsible for the failure of this mission. Ling Tian had never been defeated before. Today, he had been defeated in such a pathetic manner. He had lost 10 of his subordinates in one go. Even the assassin number 2 whom he had spent so much effort to nurture had died. Such a loss would take many years to nurture. The Qianqi City branch was basically crippled. Disgrace. Ling Tian was furious. He clenched his fists and asked hoarsely, "Where did the target go?" "Sir, they directly tore through space and left. They were too powerful, and we couldn't follow them. Moreover, we'd be discovered if we followed them, so." The assassin replied with a trembling voice. "Did you record the Silk Pants battle with the target?" Ling Tian asked coldly. "I recorded it. It's very complete." The assassin handed over the image stone, which was considered a meritorious service. Ling Tian took the image stone and disappeared from Sea of Flowers City in the blink of an eye. He did not even look at the scene where sword god Dugu killed Cheng Wanli with his final sword strike. Half a day later, in Qianqi City, Ling Tian carefully observed the video of Yi Qinghan killing more than 100 experts. He gradually analyzed it and began to use the intelligence channels of the God-slaying sect to quickly investigate Yi Qinghan's identity. Yi Qinghan, from a small realm, entered a middle realm. The 3 women by his side are actually the inheritors of the Chaos Dragon, and the last one should have the Heavenly Treasure battle physique. This Yi Qinghan has exceeded my expectations. He has the 5 elements Dao physique, and he wants to forge the 9 revolution Dao physique. Ling Tian had practically dug out Yi Qinghan's foundation. This god-slaying sect was indeed ridiculously powerful, and they even reached into the middle realm. Humph. You offended me. I don't care who you are, but I will crush you. Since you're in the Dragonline realm, you can't escape. However, I have to clarify this matter first. Ghost Taoist Flowing Sky, you better not disappoint me. Ling Tian coldly said. Ling Tian's hands formed a seal, and he summoned a transmission talisman. This type of transmission talisman had a specific channel. Whoosh! In the palace, a golden ripple appeared on the surface of a mirror, and Ghost Taoist Flowing Sky appeared in front of Ling Tian. Flowing Sky, you're quite capable. You almost caused the annihilation of all my subordinates. Ling Tian's voice was cold, and he hoarsely said. Silk Pants. Because of one sentence from you, this old man lost 10 assassins that I nurtured, and the number 2 assassin that I personally taught died a tragic death. You better give me an explanation. Chapter 867. Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong's expression changed when he saw the image of Yi Qinghan killing the people from Ghost Splitter Island. Fellow Taoist, please don't misunderstand. I didn't know he was so ridiculously strong. It's just that a junior in the sect described his appearance and behavior, so I hope you can deal with him. Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong hurriedly explained. No matter who they offended, they couldn't offend the branch leader of the God-slaying sect. Otherwise, they wouldn't even know how they died. Even if Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong wasn't afraid of Ling Tian, once Ling Tian was angry, the disciples of the 6 gods Dao sect could only hide in the sect. I've only lost once so far, and my reputation is ruined. The heroes of the world have gathered outside the Dragon Gate Inn, and in less than half a day, the entire Dragonline realm will know that my god-slaying sect has lost. The death of my people is a small matter, but the name of the god-slaying sect cannot be blasphemed. The reason for this failure is your nonsense. If you don't give me an explanation, I'll personally go to the Six Gods Dao sect to ask for an explanation. Ling Tian shouted sternly. Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong's expression was ugly. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to cause so much trouble for him. I'll personally capture Yi Qinghan and send him to you for you to vent your anger. Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong said in a low voice. No need. You don't have to worry about Yi Qinghan. He offended my god-slaying sect, so I'll naturally deal with him personally. Over-god Ling Tian coldly refused. Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong fell silent. It seemed that Ling Tian wouldn't let the Six Gods Dao sect off if he didn't vomit blood today. A drop of diluted Supreme God Force, if used properly, can instantly destroy a powerful over-god. My Six Gods Dao sect has been around for so long, but we only obtained a few drops of Supreme God Force. After diluting it continuously, there's only a few drops left. Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong gritted his teeth and released the Supreme God Force. It was a huge loss, and his heart ached incomparably. Supreme God Force was the energy condensed by a paramount god, and a drop of it was equivalent to a peak paramount god's attack. After diluting it 100 times, killing an over-god would be child's play, and it was priceless. There were no more than 20 organizations that had Supreme God Force. Ling Tian's expression, which was hidden under the mask, changed slightly. He nodded and said, "All right, I will continue to complete the mission, but the price will be doubled. This time, I will do it personally, so there will be no mistakes." Ghost Daoist Flowing Void exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said coldly, "That's for the best. The price is not a problem. Lu Guang's orphan must not be left alive. Otherwise, I won't be the only one condemned by the world. Your god-killing Dao will also be punished." Tens of millions of li away, Yi Qinghan and the others were running for their lives, avoiding Qianxi City and entering Suong City. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice, "Let's use the gate to head straight to the center of the Dragonline realm. Let's escape from the Dragonline realm first." Once the god-slaying path was enraged, it would be like a thunderbolt. The Dragonline plain was no longer safe. Experts could come at any time. However, their speed was still a little too slow. On the day they entered the city, all the major cities in the Dragonline realm issued a domain gate restriction. It would only be activated once a month. Lord God Ling Tian naturally could not do this, but the entire god-slaying path definitely had the ability to ban all domain gates. Yi Qinghan and the others rested in an inn for a while. Soon, they received the news. Their expressions changed at the same time. It seemed like the god-slaying path's reaction was really fast. What should we do now? Without the domain gate, it would take at least 1,000 years for us to fly out of the Dragonline realm. Long Zai said helplessly. 1,000 years was too long. Yi Qinghan did not have that much time to waste here. He needed to quickly return to the middle plain. After all, that was his battlefield. Yi Qinghan was silent. He leaned on the chair and looked out the window. No one spoke. Qin Yanfei did not dare to speak either. Now, if she spoke another word, it might anger the god-slaying fiend in front of her. If she angered Yi Qinghan, he was capable of doing anything. The Dragonline realm was too big. The space-time was stable, and the gravity here was much higher than the middle plane. It was impossible to fly out of the Dragonline realm. Do you know the Master God of Su Heng City? Or the city lord of a nearby Master God? Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and asked in a deep voice. Long Zai shook her head. Even if she knew, no one would dare to offend the god-slaying path to save her. Before the first wave subsided, another wave rose. Before anyone could find a solution, the Six Gods Dao sect issued another kill order, causing a huge commotion. Back then, the Flowing Light Master God was brought up again. The Flowing Light Master God's youngest son was born, but he was kidnapped by the Dragon Gate Inn's owner and Yi Qinghan. They threatened the Six Gods Dao sect. The Six Gods Dao sect hunted down Yi Qing Han, Long Zai, and the others in the name of the Flowing Light Master God. Anyone who killed Yi Qing Han or Long Zai would be able to comprehend the time law boundary steel. If they killed the other two, they would be able to obtain the space law boundary steel. If they rescued the Flowing Light Master God and sent him to the Six Gods Dao sect, they would be able to comprehend the Six Law Inheritance Boundary Steel and be personally taken in as a disciple by Ghost Taoist Flowing Void. In an instant, the entire Dragonline plane was discussing this topic. The expressions of Yi Qing Han and the others changed greatly. This Ghost Taoist Flowing Void was indeed a sly old fox. He actually used the Flowing Light Master God's name to hunt them down. This way, they would have a good reason to act, and more experts would join in. In the future, it would be difficult for them to move an inch. In the Six Gods Dao sect, Shuel Yang returned to the sect and told the current time inheritor, the Flowing Light Master God's direct disciple, Qing Si Hai. He was also Qing Yan Fei's father. You mean to say that Long Zai is also Master's descendant, and Martial Uncle Flowing Void is the real murderer who killed Master back then? Qing Si Hai had a square face and a dignified aura. He looked to be in his 40s, and his face was full of righteousness. His voice was deep and powerful, and it was very convincing. And, it's definitely true. Master, the moment junior sister informed the sect, the assassin arrived at the Dragon Gate Inn. It was exactly as Yi Qing Han had deduced. At first, I didn't believe it, but when the assassin arrived, I understood. Our enemy was actually the sect master. Shuel Yang said in a low voice. We don't have any evidence, so don't spread it. Even if you say it, no one will believe you. Now, we can only wait for the right time. Qing Si Hai slowly stood up. His tall and straight body emitted a powerful aura, causing the surrounding time to stagnate and everything to stop. Where did Martial Nephew Zai take Xiao Fei? How can we contact them? Qing Si Hai asked in a low voice. Replying to Master, this disciple doesn't know. Yi Qing Han only gave me a message talisman, telling you to wait for his message and not spread it. Otherwise, he will kill Xiao Fei. Shuel Yang bowed and said. And, just act like you don't know about this. Without my orders, don't tell anyone. You can leave. I will go and test the sect master. Qing Si Hai waved his hand and said. Qing Si Hai left the Time Inheritance Hall and a cold light appeared at the corner of his eyes. He headed straight for the sect master's main peak. Along the way, the young disciples all bowed respectfully. It seemed like he had a lot of prestige in the sect. Qing Si Hai just nodded his head and quickly arrived at Flowing Sky Ghost Taoist's seclusion area. He knocked on the door and entered. Their eyes met. Senior uncle, they all know the truth of what happened back then, but they don't have any evidence. That kid is still sealed, so we have to quickly wipe them out and destroy that kid. Qing Si Hai said seriously. It seems like this Yi Qing Han is really a jinx. He actually ruined my plans. Flowing Sky Ghost Taoist said coldly. At this moment, if Shuel Yang saw this scene, he would be so shocked that his teeth would fall out. He didn't expect his righteous master to be on the same side as Flowing Sky Ghost Taoist. Chapter 868. Within the spacious room, there were only two powerful sovereigns. Their eyes stared at each other, gleaming brightly. The revered Master God of Time, the direct disciple of the Flowing Light Master God, Qing Hai, had actually participated in the battle to kill his master. Just thinking about it made one shudder. I really don't understand the ancestral teachings. Why can't the 6 great inheritances merge into one? This old man wants to see for himself just what sort of an outcome would occur if all 6 legacies were to fuse together. That bastard Flowing Light has been trying to stop me all this while. If not for the fact that he had advised the Life Master God and the others, this old man might have succeeded by now. Taoist Flowing Light's aura was cold and sinister. Even now, he still harbored a grudge against Master God Flowing Light. Senior uncle, I believe that once the 6 great laws are combined into one, you will definitely become a supreme god. Now that all the supreme gods are dead, you will definitely become an unparalleled existence. Qing 4Cs bowed and said. Yes, my dear nephew, I know you're ambitious. Don't worry, I won't be ungrateful. Once I become a paramount god, I'll definitely help you become a paramount god as well. When the time comes, we'll break through eternity and share the world. Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong said seriously. Overturning the 4C's dignified face glowed red. Just the thought of becoming a supreme god made him excited. However, the most important thing right now is to get rid of that child and kill Yi Qinghan and Long Zai. As long as the 3 of them are dead, who will know that we were the culprits from back then? Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong said with a sinister smile. Martial uncle, I have an idea. Qing 4C's eyes flashed as he spoke. Oh. Tell me, Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong immediately replied. That child has been sealed, and only my eternal time technique can undo it. They must have taken my daughter because they want me to undo the seal. However, they don't seem to trust me very much. Why don't we beat them at their own game and give them the false impression that I know you killed my master and then fall out with you? Then, you injure me and I escape from the 6 gods Tao sect. They will naturally come looking for me, and won't their location be exposed? Qing Sihai smiled. Then what should we tell the outside world? Ghost Taoist Flowing Void asked with a frown. The 6 gods Tao sect was a large sect after all. There had to be a convincing reason for the battle between the inheritors. I'll stay silent. Just give me a random reason. The more unconvincing it is, the more Long Zai and the others will believe me. Overwhelming 4Cs had a knife hidden in his smile. His smile was chilling. Sure enough, on the 2nd day, something shocking happened in the 6 gods Tao sect. The Time Inheritor and the 6 gods Tao sect actually fought. Qing Sihai was injured and fled, and the Time Inheritor's first direct disciple was detained by the 6 gods Tao sect. The reason was that Qing Sihai was eager to save his daughter and wanted to compromise with Yi Qinghan and the others, which infuriated the 6 gods Tao sect. However, Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong had been speaking up for Qing Sihai to the outside world, saying that he loved his daughter dearly. This was just a misunderstanding, so there was no need for everyone to be suspicious. After Qing Fenghai escaped from the 6 gods Tao sect, he quickly disappeared and did not appear to speak. Only Ghost Taoist Flowing Void was explaining to the outside world. Many people suspected that the enormous 6 gods Tao sect would actually have internal strife because of saving someone. Yi Qinghan and the others, who were far away in Suong City, learned that the 6 gods Tao sect's lineage had actually fought with the main sect. Even Qing Sihai had been injured and their chief disciple had been detained. Could it be that when Martial Uncle Qing found out that Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong was the one who killed Grandpa, he couldn't hold back and went to question him, resulting in a fight? Long Zai followed the normal reasoning and asked in doubt. It must be like that. Wu, father's whereabouts are unknown. Could Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong have? Ah! Qin Yen Fei immediately burst into tears. Yi Qinghan frowned and said coldly, "Shut up." Qin Yen Fei immediately lost her voice and did not dare to cry anymore. She looked at Yi Qinghan in fear. Yi Qinghan did not think that this matter would be like that. A person who could inherit a law would definitely not be so impulsive. If one were to think from another person's perspective, it would be very easy to find a flaw. If you were the Time Inheritor and you knew that Ghost Taoist Flowing Kong had killed your master, would you immediately go to question him and start a fight without any evidence? Yi Qinghan looked at Long Zai and asked indifferently. Long Zai thought for a moment and nodded. It's possible, you're not allowed to doubt my father. My father has always been respected and fair. He's a good person. The entire divine sect respects him. You can insult me, but you can't insult my father. Qin Yanfei roared. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He did not understand Qin Yanfei, so he could not be sure if the situation was as it seemed. Let's contact Martial Uncle Qin. As long as we meet him, we'll know. Long Zai suggested. Wait, let me think about it. Yi Qinghan said solemnly. At this moment, in a battle of wits and courage, victory and defeat were decided with a single thought from Yi Qinghan. Logically speaking, it was obvious that Long Zai was right. Qin Yanfei trusted her father enough. The real reason why Shuai Yang was detained by Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong was self-evident. It's not that I'm insulting your father, but if I trust someone else, we'll both lose our lives. I won't put my life in someone else's hands. It doesn't matter if he's a good person or a bad person. It has nothing to do with me. However, there are 2 points that I don't understand. Yi Qinghan said coldly. What 2 points? Long Zai asked doubtfully. First, he's a master god who controls a law inheritance. He shouldn't be so impulsive. However, he did something so impulsive. He really lacks intelligence. Second, if he was as impulsive as he appeared to be, why didn't he continue to be impulsive and come out to prove that Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong was the murderer? However, he didn't do that. Could it be that he grew brains and matured after his first loss? Yi Qinghan asked. This. Long Zai hesitated. His seemingly flawless reasoning had been found by Yi Qinghan. For a moment, he didn't know whether he should trust Qin Yanfei or not. Emperor Yi, Zixian, and the others nodded. They felt that Yi Qinghan's question was very reasonable. A smart person wouldn't do something so stupid. Since he did it, he must have a motive. My father was raised by the ancestor. It's normal for him to not be able to control himself when he found out about the murderer. You can't say that he's stupid. It only shows that he's a righteous person. Qin Yanfei retorted angrily. Since he's a righteous person, why hasn't he come out to testify yet? Once he does, we'll take advantage of the situation and cooperate with him. Our chances of defeating Ghost Daoist Flowing Kong will be very high. Yi Qinghan asked. Qin Yanfei was instantly speechless. Therefore, we have to prepare for 2 aspects of this matter. If there's no problem with your father, then that's naturally the best. If there's a problem, then we can beat him at his own game. It seems that if we can't defeat the Killing God Dao sect and the 6 Gods Dao sect, then I won't be able to leave the upper plains. Yi Qinghan laughed evilly. When it came to a battle of wits and courage, he had never been afraid of anyone. Chapter 869. In the Dragonline Plain, killing intent filled the air. Every city was searching for the whereabouts of Yi Qinghan and the others. Qin 4 Seas, who was in hiding, had been waiting for Yi Qinghan's message. However, 3 days had passed and Yi Qinghan still hadn't contacted him. Looks like this kid is very vigilant. He's not easy to deal with. Qin 4 Seas muttered to himself. On the 4th day, Yi Qinghan finally sent a message. The 2 of them crossed space and appeared in front of each other. It was equivalent to a face-to-face conversation. Dao friend Qing, I've made you wait. Are you alright? Yi Qinghan stared at the mirror in front of him and asked calmly. I'm fine. I only exchanged blows with Ghost Daoist Flowing Void for a short time. Qin 4 Seas was incomparably dignified. Overwhelming righteousness rushed out of his body. Such an existence gave people a sense of trust. If Yi Qinghan wasn't so careful, people would also believe him. Qin 4 Seas' words didn't have any flaws. However, to Yi Qinghan, there was a huge flaw. If Qing 4C's really impulsively questioned Ghost Daoist Flowing Void because of his loyalty, how could he retreat after a simple exchange? It didn't make sense. Yi Qinghan smiled and said frankly, I don't trust you. That's why I contacted you so late. Even now, I still don't trust you. However, it doesn't hinder our cooperation. My master only has one son left. If it was me, I would also be very vigilant. You've done very well. This seat doesn't blame you. However, I hope to talk to Ziyi personally. This is our family's matter. Dao friend, please let us deal with it. Qing 4Cs said seriously. Ziyi is my woman. I have the responsibility and obligation to help her deal with anything, including this matter. If you really want to avenge your master, protect this child, and let Qin Yanfei live well, then you have to listen to me. This seat has always been a villain before a gentleman. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Qing 4Cs frowned. He couldn't understand what Yi Qinghan was trying to do. The time law boundary steel is in your hands, right? It will never leave the time inheritor's side. It's useless even if you deny it. Yi Qinghan said calmly. 4Cs looked at Yi Qinghan in shock and thought to himself, what is this kid trying to do? Don't you want to undo the seal on that child as soon as possible? Give the law boundary stone to Yi Zai, and we will undo the child's seal. Once the child's seal is undone, we can work together. After all, if we want to overthrow Flowing Sky Ghost Taoist, we will need your cooperation, Yi Qinghan said honestly. No. The law of time boundary stone has never been passed down to outsiders. This is an ancestral rule. Even if you kill Xiaofei, I will not give it to you. Overwhelming Cs rejected Yi Qinghan's suggestion without hesitation. Since we can't continue working together, I'll satisfy you, Yi Qinghan said coldly. 4Cs looked at Yi Qinghan's cold eyes and immediately said, wait, what are you trying to do? I am Master's direct disciple. No one wants to take revenge for Master more than me. You can doubt me, but you can't do something that will make your enemies happy. Since you respect your master so much, why can't the law of time boundary stone let Yi Zai cultivate and undo the seal on his only son? Everything is just an excuse. It shows that you don't care about your master. Why should I believe you? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Master has given strict orders. The law boundary stone is only for males and not females. It is only for internal members and not for external members. Stop talking nonsense with me. Qin Yanfei tried to comprehend the law of time boundary stone but failed. I have no interest in bargaining with you. If you want me to believe you, at least show me some sincerity. Otherwise, I will not work with you in the future, Yi Qinghan interrupted 4C's words coldly. 4Cs did not expect Yi Qinghan to be so difficult to deal with. He did not even allow him to communicate with Long Zai. He could not even play the emotional card. Also, the one who comprehended the law of time is Long Zai, not me. She comprehended the law boundary stone to save your master's child. You are using the excuse that the law boundary stone is only for males and not females to brush me off. Are you treating me like a 3-year-old child? Yi Qinghan sneered. 4Cs went silent. It seemed that if he wanted to find out Yi Qinghan's location, he would not be able to do so without putting in a lot of effort. Where are you? I will personally hand the boundary stone to Yi Zai, 4Cs said solemnly. No need. You can send the boundary stone to Qianxi City. Someone will naturally come and retrieve it. After seeing the real boundary stone, I will naturally tell you our specific location, Yi Qinghan smiled. Are you crazy? The God-slaying paths people are looking for you everywhere. Aren't you just walking into a trap by putting the location in Qianxi City? 4Cs angrily questioned. The most dangerous place is the safest place. You are the only one who knows that I am going to Qianxi City. If the God-slaying paths people know that I am in Qianxi City, then it can only mean one thing: you sold me out. The rest will be up to us to take revenge. I will let the world appreciate and taste your daughter." Yi Qinghan cruelly smiled. Forces took a deep breath and angrily glared at Yi Qinghan. He felt like he was not dealing with a young man, but a demon that had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. "I want to say something to Yi Zai. At the very least, I want to make sure that you are not the one threatening her," Forces said through gritted teeth. Yi Qinghan was in his room. Long Zai and the others were anxiously waiting by the side. Until now, they had not found anything wrong with Forces. Long Zai felt that it was strange for Yi Qinghan to speak to him in such a manner. He was afraid that he would offend this martial uncle. Yi Qinghan gently waved his hand and called Long Zai over. Long Zai bowed and said, "Martial uncle, my father is Long Jingtian." "Child, are you really still alive?" "Martial uncle does not know. Otherwise, I would have brought you back to the Six Gods Tao sect long ago. It has been hard on you all these years." For Caesar's disguise was very good. At this moment, he was crying. The emotions contained in his voice did not seem fake. Long Zai's nose turned sour. He understood the pain he had suffered all these years. However, it was all in the past. Moreover, he was an over-god. He quickly controlled his emotions. "Martial uncle, it is not that I doubt you. It is just that I cannot afford to gamble. This is my only family member. I need to personally remove the seal for him. If you hand the time law boundary steel to me, everyone will believe you. They will naturally gather with you." Long Zai said helplessly. "All right, but you must not hurt my daughter. She is very innocent." Her words were inappropriate. As her elder sister, you must not be calculative with her. 3 days later, tell Yi Qinghan to come to Qianxi City to retrieve the time law boundary steel. Forces said dejectedly. With that, Yi Qinghan ended the call and kept the communication talisman. He said in a low voice, "You all stay in the city for the next few days. Try not to go out. I will go retrieve the boundary steel. Whether Forces is trustworthy or not, we will know after a test." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.